Hi guys, look, this is what I want to talk to you about. I might as well just record it because I did actually leave a message on the answering machine for the lawyer. He did ring me up actually to talk to me, but I missed the call. The guy who's dealing with the case anyway. This is really, really important for everyone now in the whole of England, not just the Stonehenge case. Actually, everyone. I mean, that tree's just been cut down by some teenager on Hadrian's Wall, right? And if you're following Neil Oliver's videos and Richard Verb's videos and Russell Brand and Dr. John Campbell and Robert F. Kennedy, who's running for president, and Marianne Williamson, who's running for president, that kind of group of people are what you call basically in favour of, the environment, heritage, countryside, but also opposed to all of the corruption, the big corporate entities, the big corporate groups, mass takeover with technology and all this surveillance state. And people are starting to get censored now, like, they've taken Russell Brand's monetization off and trying to stop him from publishing videos. Both Dr. John Campbell and Verbs have had videos removed. I've had one of my channels taken down. Even 38 Degrees petition site, who are meant to be on our side, have taken 3 of my petitions down. Someone was collecting signatures for me and they got some dodgy signatures on there, and it was impossible for me to check them because 38 Degrees didn't let you see your own data, so you couldn't even check it. So 38 Degrees, they're claiming that they're like this champion of petitions, champion of the public rights, but they're not. They've actually been helping the government mislead and undermine people on rights. But the Petitions Committee do that anyway. They regularly reject petitions, claim that they don't know what people are asking. Even, if you get signatures from, like academics, like professors on there, how can they not know what you're asking for when like 5 professors have signed a petition? So the Petitions Committee are just making stuff up to try and keep things out because they don't want to publish it. That situation is where Robert F. Kennedy is now. He's a legitimate contender. He's a legitimate candidate. He's running, and they're trying to block him. Biden's trying to block him from running as a Democrat. Like, even if he'd have got 80% of the votes, he wouldn't have won. They've rigged it. They've stopped him from speaking on mainstream TV. He didn't get a speak in Congress. Like, one of the Republicans had to give him some of their time. This is like big moves, big blocks from government that is serious when it's actually obvious. We've got Jacob Rees-Mogg, who's not meant to be on GB News. He's even been, his case was like gone to Ofcom, and then even the select committee chairman was saying that he shouldn't be on there. But there is some further legislation for that as well, which even says that basically it doesn't matter whether it's a news programme or a current affairs programme, it's just the fact that he's Mogg and he's an elected MP, even outside of election time, and even if he doesn't even try and affect the electors voting, but even if it might affect the electors voting. So Mogg is blatantly on TV in front of the whole country on like GB News lying. He's not even meant to be there. This is the like extent of what we're dealing with. We've got like Robert F. Kennedy running for president. They try to block him. We've got Mogg on GB News. And then we've got all these ancient sites issues and stuff. So what it's actually, we've stood the Stonehenge Tunnel, right? I'll try to get it into context of what the Stonehenge Tunnel has got to do with all that. It is to do with Highways England and the Department of Transport, and it's to do with the local council strategic planning, and it's got to do with all of the contractors and the companies who own the contractors, like HS2. There's all like HS2 rebellion going on, like trying to stop the HS2, like up and down the country, loads and loads of protests trying to save trees. It's got to do with the fact that all those companies are owned by the same businesses, when you watch like some of the new Anonymous videos and others, it shows all the ownership of all the businesses. And it shows that when you go into a supermarket or a shop and you look on the shelves, nearly every single one of those products is owned by the same corporations, and there is no competition between products as long as we're buying them. And with the contractors, like with Care and Balfour Beatty and all the others, and with the house building and the roads, all of the big ones, the major ones, are owned by the same companies. JCB, who make the machines that are like beep, 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 really knackering people's eardrums and making harassing noises. You know, all of the buses, all the new talking buses, next stop, next stop, next stop, next stop, all of this conditioning, which they're using on us, psychological conditioning with the noises and the sounds, which is basically tied into what Elon Musk is doing with his Neuralink and everything like that. So like with Stonehenge though, with the tunnel, so the Department of Transport and Highways England, they've got their own strategy, their own plan, and they are directing everything. But these plans are, whether or not it's Labour or the Conservative, it doesn't matter, because this Uniparty has got the same general overall plan. And that falls suit with these local councils, with all of the things they're forcing on people like cycle lanes and 15-minute cities now. All of the local strategic planning, which is now, you know, removing lots of trees from places that people don't want removing. So the strategic planning of England, this is what it is, and Stonehenge Tunnel falls into this category of strategic planning. Now, I'll try make this relevant to what we're looking at when we're talking about strategic planning and big corporate entities who are literally the ones who are putting everything on the table. They're the ones with all of the money, all of the funds, all of the suggestions. They're the ones who are shaping our towns, shaping our cities. And there's a little bit of it that comes through the television that basically gets independent local people, encourages them to, you know, do certain things that are in line with fashion, whatever television's broadcasting people, and whatever these companies are making, the latest conservatories, the latest things in B&Q, all the latest things, when they can rope people into getting things, sometimes when they don't even need them, just for the sake of it. So, kind of like, I know that's a really big net to cast, right? But you have to cast that net to get the picture. Also in Ireland, with like Glenjury Dolmen is like a very, very sacred valley. It's like a crack in the floor, and it's got like not this vault dolmen in the valley. It's almost like a feminine kind of shape because it's like a little knob in a crack. And they've been trying to get some flats, apartments built there, which would kind of like peered out over the top of it around the edges and really kind of make a mess of it. They automatically get that planning permission if they're building over 400 homes, and you can't object to it unless you petition the council. There's no normal objection method. They're making people pay €20 to even submit an observation. So for you to even really say, oh, just a minute, what's going on there, or even have a say, I mean, you know, it's like speak to the hand because the face ain't listening, or effectively, you know, nothing to see here. You've got to pay €20 to even have a say. Now, that is against, in England, surely that would be illegal because it's against the right to petition governments, the right to even enter complaints to the government. You'd have to pay money. I've learned that by reading the Professor Karen Bowie paper at Glasgow University on the history of petitioning, they were trying to charge people for submitting petitions. They were trying to get people to comply with really outlandish rules and outlandish procedures, manipulative procedures, like all these time limits, charging people, things like that. Also making you have to submit petitions to a grand jury or through a local council or justices. and they had like Lord of the Articles and so forth. Now, also, I should note, this is important to understand this. I've found the 1661 Tumultuous Petitioning Act, and its full entirety has just appeared on the internet. I couldn't find it, and it's just magically appeared in Google like it was being hidden or something. That act, this is really important for all Extinction Rebellion and Just Stop Oil, and they don't really seem to be getting the message through to them. Spoken to Jonathan N. Fuller a few times on his Facebook, but I don't know why we can't get any help from the Good Law Project. The Stonehenge lawyers should really be helping with this. I mean, we need help with this because, so in that Tumultuous Petitioning Act, it clearly and explicitly says that when you're petitioning either Houses of Parliament or the King, when there were any prosecutions or misdemeanours like, rebellious behaviour, public disorders, all those things that they were bringing up in connection with those petitions, they were all brought and heard through the King's Bench, through the assizes, right? It tells you that in the Tumultuous Petitioning Act, right? So we know that for all of the matters that were being brought to the Palace of Westminster and the King, either houses, right, you weren't getting brought through the local courts. It was a special legal process, the King's Bench. So you could only be prosecuted through the King's Bench assizes, right? Now, and they also had some ridiculous rules for how many people could sign petitions, right? These are commitments that they're trying to make people abide by, like trying to charge people for petitions. Now, this is absolutely fact. I mean, this is in a professor's paper, and if you read the Tumultuous Act, it's absolutely critical when you go on to read in the 1661, the main Bill of Rights that we all know. When you read the 1688 Bill of Rights, you have to know all this information for correct interpretation. And the interpretation is that, what is the 1688 Bill? It's the opening part of it, the start of it, the main declaration is that evil judges, local councillors and MPs have been subverting the fundamental rights and liberties of the realm. That's what it's about. The subversion of freedoms, rights and liberties. And the people who would do that are MPs, judges or councillors. So that's what the bill's about. It's about MPs, members of parliament, councillors and judges who are doing things wrong. They're breaking the law. They are subverting the liberties and freedoms. So it's reaffirming the liberties and making up some rules and regulations in order to prevent those three groups of people from doing it. And if they do, it makes it an illegal act, unlawful. So it's actually preventing judges, councillors and MPs from prosecuting us unlawfully, withholding our rights, failing to grant our rights. That is what the bill's about, and setting them all out. Now, in that bill, you've got all the rights are listed, and a lot of them are cumulative or cross-applicable, which means that they work together. There are certain things that you do where multiple clauses apply, like free speech and petitioning the government. You would use both of those together. They are compatible and they both apply when you're doing a certain thing. They were trying to stop people even from speaking in public in their own houses and having meetings and things like that. Debating, arguing in their own houses and in public, for example. So a lot of those clauses apply together. And it says some of the things you can't do, like, all the things through the statutes, like, you can't draw arms against the king or attacking other people. You can't have a standing army. You're allowed to gather peaceably in public as a group, but it can't be an army, and you can't be armed, and you can't attack people, right? So there are some boundaries. The right to petition the king and all prosecutions are illegal doesn't mean you can just do what you want. You're not actually allowed to get everyone together and say, we've got an army, right? You're meant to deal with it through the proper due process, although it says you can't be prosecuted for anything through the King's Bench. After the opening part, it goes into context of what illegal prosecutions are. What are illegal prosecutions? It says illegal prosecutions by the King's Bench for matters that are only decidable through the Parliament. And also, which is illegal, are other ways, means and methods of punishing people or taking their rights away. Other ways besides illegal prosecutions, like basically refusing to act or refusing to uphold your rights, which is what the Advertising Standards Agency are doing now. The Advertising Standards Agency and Ofcom, they're meant to govern adverts and media, which is broadcast. They're taking stuff down and following leads for complaints, but part of governance is not only what you can't do, but what you can do. Governance is what you can do and what you can't do. Well, you can publish things for petitions and legal cases. Like in the First Amendment in America is the right to petition government and use free speech in that and publish in order to distribute that free speech. They all work together. They combine. That's why they add on the freedom of the press to free speech in the American First Amendment. We've got something that's the same as that, which is in the Town and Country Planning Act in advertisements, because when you've got a petition or a campaign, you have to be able to promote it and advertise it, let people know about it, not only by speaking and using your mouth, but by printing, publishing, distributing, delivering. And anything that promotes a petition is an advertisement. You're advertising it. Whether you're paying for it or whether it's free, it doesn't matter. And a legal representation as well, because a petition is a legal case. In law, it's equal to a criminal case, a criminal proceedings or civil proceedings. Its status is legal proceedings, and that's why 38 Degrees aren't. 38 Degrees do take it seriously, but they're taking it seriously the wrong way. They're taking it seriously against us rather than helping us for us. They've kind of like gone over to the side of the corporate entities in a way, which is kind of corroding the rights away. 38 Degrees are in a weird position because they're not a court and they're not the government and they're not a newspaper or YouTube, but they've got a website and they are publishing and hosting the petitions, but they're not the authority that makes the decision on them. And they're not us, the creator. And they didn't sign any of them. They want to, in a way, they're like an online newspaper of petitions, but they're not the government. And they're in an awkward position because we've got rights, and some of those rights for legal cases are that a third party is not the government, and a third party, Tom, Dick and Harry, can't intervene in a legal proceeding. It would be like B&Q. It would be like if you got a criminal case to the courts. Now, the thing is, B&Q don't get involved in legal cases to the courts because it's a garden centre, right? But, you know, unless you're claiming against B&Q and taking them to court in a civil case, right? Or unless you stole something from B&Q and they're prosecuting you with evidence. Other than that, it's a garden centre. I mean, what a newspaper isn't a court. Now, the thing with 38 Degrees, right, is that they wanted to have a petition website, but they're taking it seriously, but not seriously enough, because it is when you collect signatures and when you get evidence together, you're running a legal case, and that evidence, if it's taken from you, they haven't got the right to seize legal evidence from you, and they can't even create it in a policy. The situation is the same as really with the newspaper, right? Now, the thing with petitions is you've got to share them to the public. They've got to see them. The way to get your head around it is, if you think of a criminal case, right? Why would you need a newspaper in a criminal case? The police have a press department. The police have a press office, right? Why would you or me need a newspaper in a civil or criminal case? Because you don't need to use the newspaper. Well, you do. What happens if you don't have any witnesses? Or what happens if you don't have enough evidence, right? You put a notice in the newspaper and you say, my car was stolen on January the 15th and we need witnesses. Can anyone of the public who has seen it come forward, please, and give a statement if you saw anything? A painting was stolen. The Mona Lisa was stolen, but everyone knows what the Mona Lisa looks like. But if they didn't, here's a picture of the Mona Lisa, right? But how can you even publish in the newspaper a photograph of the Mona Lisa 500,000 times in 500,000 newspapers copies when it's copyrighted? Because Black Belt Barrister said, right, that, even if you've bought a painting, that doesn't immediately give you the right to take a photograph of the painting, because that's you copy, you're making a copy of it. You bought it, you can have it, but you haven't got the right to copy it. Whatever. If someone stole a painting and you're in a legal case and you want to see if anyone's seen the painting, then you put out pictures of it. I've had some artwork stolen. It went missing from Royal Mail in between Islington and the return centre in Ireland, right? And I've currently got an issue with the headquarters about where it's gone to, right? You have to publish it in the newspaper, a photo of it, to ask people if they've seen it. So for legal cases, right, for legal proceedings, you are exempt from copyright. You have to be, or you can't fulfil a function of government, a function of the courts, a function of legal proceedings. So you have to publish the picture of the painting if it's been stolen. Now, the same is with witnesses. So that is a function of democracy. It's a function of government. It's a function of the Ministry of Justice. It's a function of the courts. Right? For the legal system to operate, you have to be able to ask for witnesses, and not just in the local, village notice board, or not just walking around asking people in public or in the village, but in the newspaper. Now, in the newspaper, there is always been public notices, right? It's a section for public notices from the public. It's not commercial adverts. You're not selling anything. It's not for profit. And it's not like a news story that the public have approached the newspaper with, or a story that the newspaper investigated. It's reserved for public notices. And up till maybe the 1960s, 70s or 80s, it used to be free, because you're not selling anything. You're not making any money. You're not selling widgets or sprockets or whatever. it's a notice from the public. We've got a petition, asking the public to support something, or I've lost my dog, or I've lost my jacket, or something like that. Public notices, or I've lost my cat or dog. So they used to let people have free public notices, and some small newspapers still have free public notices. But the thing is, all these newspapers have always been privately owned. The London Gazette publishes notices mainly, but they're privately owned. But the deal is, this is the deal in law, right? Even though the newspapers are privately owned, we need them for democracy to function. Because it's the main distribution network that there was around the country. Newspapers were in every, shop, off license, village. They had a distribution network. It was our communication line. So the deal was that for function of government and for function of democracy, that is our nation to work, there are certain things that secure the publication of certain things, that the owners have an obligation to host and publish. And that is certain things that are required for society to function at its core in legal proceedings or in voting and elections. And that is where when it got added into the American First Amendment, it extends on freedom of speech to freedom of the press. It adds on to freedom of speech for democratic process and function and petitioning and even speaking in your own private house, debating. Any part of your MP is not the only, so like a legal case, the legal case doesn't take part in court only. The police's role in proceedings is outside of the court. Investigative roles are outside of the court. Getting statements are outside of the court. To get it into court, it comes from out of the court, but it's all proceedings for that purpose, in anything in connection with those proceedings, right? And that's the same with Parliament. So going to your local MP's surgery, collecting petition signatures, investigating to obtain information for petitions, debating them, handing them in to your MP, and then he goes to debate it in Parliament, and they go put it through. All of that is the casework and the framework and proceedings in connection with Parliament for that purpose. And all that is covered by it. Or else you wouldn't even be able to speak about it in your house to say what you're going to even write down to get people to sign. So that is the protected framework. Now in England, we do have the same as the First Amendment, because in the Bill of Rights, it only adds free speech to the right to petition and protects it. It doesn't say freedom of the press. But we have got it. Well, it says all prosecutions are illegal and you can't be held to any commitments. So you wouldn't be held to any commitments or policies by the newspaper anyway by that. But just to clarify on it and to make it clear, it is included in the Town and Country Planning through the 1990 Act and through the 2017, I think it is, or 19 statutory instruments. And what I've said, it defines adverts and it includes, representations, any words, letters and pictures and the use of them. And you have different classifications, A, B, C, D, E and F. So in the statutory instruments, it sets out what class, what category your adverts fall into. And the advertisements include on a device and on an illuminated device. So that includes on a computer screen, on a website, on your mobile phone, on light up advertising boards. So all these devices, we've got YouTube app on your phone, computer screen, an advertisement, whether free or paid, anything that is promoting a political campaign or election or an action through any device, whether illuminated or not, that is classed, and that is where YouTube comes into it, and Facebook and Twitter. And class F is where you're using legislation. And in the legislation that we use for adverts for petitions and legal cases and so forth is that class F. And that there's when you use your right to petition without being held to any commitments and without being prosecuted. And class E is elections, petitions and referendums. Class E and F, you can use them together. It says you can use multiple classes. Just like in the First Amendment, your clauses all work together. They're culminative. They're compatible. The right to petition works with freedom of speech and adds onto it, you add on the freedom of the press. So you're using all three together. Same in the Bill of Rights. You're using the right to petition and your right to assemble peaceably in public and your right to free speech. You're using all three together and more. Although you can't have a standing army and you're not meant to attack other people, but, you know, Sir or Joe Arms. So, with the advertising in the newspapers, with the statutory instruments, town and country planning, so you've got Class C as well, which is painting on walls. And you can have an advertisement painted on a wall. An advertisement painted on a wall, on a building, or on a extension of a building is Class C. Now, you can combine classes, so there's nothing stopping you combining Class C with Class E and F. Therefore, you're painting an advertisement on the side of a building for an election, petition or referendum through Class F as well, the use of the enactment, which in this case is the right to petition. But you've got other enactments, like in the Criminal Damage Act, like if you're pursuing criminals, if you're pursuing crime, things for legal cases, and that's where it comes in, like if you've got to put witness statements and so forth. Have you seen this boy? Like on the Terminator, have you seen this boy? You can put, if someone's gone missing persons, because it's for legal proceedings. So that's how the law applies. And it's not really just in the newspaper or on Facebook, YouTube and Twitter. I mean, if you go onto the Parliament petitions website, it's giving you a direction. It says share this petition on Twitter, share this petition through emails, share this petition on Facebook. So that's Parliament has published a direction, an order for you to do with the petitions. And in that Class F, it tells you an advertisement that is required or is to be published by standing orders or directions of Parliament or through a requirement or enactment. Well, the right to petition, it requires you to ask people to sign it, surely. And it requires you to promote, to share it to people and send it to people through the post, talk about it on the telephone and put it into print. So that's where we have got the same as the First Amendment in England. In fact, the First Amendment's based on ours. The First Amendment right to petition is ours. And, we knock it over to them and then they knock it back to us. And then we add in through the normal legislation. When it comes into being prosecuted, the 1688 bill says that it didn't have to say that all prosecutions are illegal. It could have said some of them are. It said all of them are. All prosecutions are illegal and commitments, right? But what are the illegal prosecutions? Well, you look earlier up in the Act, it says of illegal prosecutions. What does it tell you of illegal prosecutions? That all prosecutions by the King's Bench for matters that are to be cases brought to the Parliament. So illegal prosecutions by the King's Bench for matters that you brought to the Parliament, because you're not taking the matter to the King's Bench, you're taking it to Parliament. All misdemeanours, public disorders, legal issues by those cases are meant to be heard. Facts in legal proceedings, all facts and circumstances concerning a case are meant to be heard with that case. The case is brought together with all facts and circumstances, right? So therefore, it's only legal framework and basis logic that when you're bringing a case to the Palace of Westminster, all the activities, facts and circumstances concerned with that case are under one umbrella. It's not for the local courts or other courts. And the Tumultuous Petitioning Act, that is what it sets out, in my opinion, very clearly, that it's not the local courts. It makes it by the King's Bench assizes. I'm sure that's what it means. And after the 1661 Act, 20 years later, that act's abolished now, but when it says all prosecutions by the King's Bench, so it's making all of the prosecutions illegal. It says all of them, so you can't be prosecuted through the courts. And this is the problem with Just Stop Oil and Extinction Rebellion. Now, what I'm trying to explain I'm really trying to explain it to Jonathan N. Fuller. Max Hill, the Director of Prosecutions, he prosecuted Angela Ditchfield illegally with that Criminal Damage Act when the act that governs what she did is the Town and Country Planning Act and the statutory instruments that goes with it. 2 acts. So they brought a charge through an act which was the wrong act, and if they would have acknowledged the other 2 acts, then you've got to acknowledge that you can't be prosecutor, because those are the acts that set out the classifications and bring in the enactment and the political material. So they acted in ignorance. They acted in ignorance to 2 acts of law. And Max Hill stepped down now, but this is the thing. In the Bill of Rights, the opening part, who would subvert our liberties? Who would subvert our fundamental rights? Well, evil councillors, ministers, and judges. So judges are legal process. So, the Director of Prosecutions and the Chief Crown Prosecutor and the Chief Police Officer, the police can only bring these cases through the courts. So, the judge should recognise these things. So that is, they are in contravention of that bill. That bill there is to stop them from doing it. That bill makes what those judges are doing illegal. And it creates a wrongdoing. It creates law breaking by judges. You don't appeal it. You don't get another hearing. They've broke the law. This is something that they are doing wrong. They are committing an offence, and this is why I've got a case at the moment open with the Judicial Conduct Investigations Office. So that's on basically on what's happening with all activists at the moment, that they are getting prosecuted illegally, and something needs to be done about it. Now, when it comes to the petitions and publishing them, so 38 Degrees are not helping us at all. They're taking it seriously, but taking it seriously the wrong way. The first thing that 38 Degrees are doing wrong is they were withholding our own data from us. If you collect data and you created the document, it's your data. They're hosting it. They've got a legal obligation to protect your data and keep it safe, but not protect it from you or withhold it from you. They weren't even giving us our own email addresses that we collected, so we couldn't even check them. And then they were accusing people of, getting dud emails, right? But how do you know if they're dud if you can't see them? So they created the problem. Now, I paid an independent promoter to get some signatures for me, right? And they got dodgy signatures. And then 38 Degrees blame me, right? They said it was my fault. Now, the thing is, with that, all elections and petitions, when you run an election, no person who signs it, no matter who they are, can derail it, can spoil it, can sabotage it. Otherwise, I mean, if you were running like an election at the local polling station, and, a load of foreign immigrants went in, for example, and they just, pretended they were English and signed it, that doesn't write off the election. After the election's finished, it doesn't write it off and you have to have the election again, and it doesn't cancel it. If they, their signatures are invalid, they're not valid, they're void. When you count up elections and anything that's invalid or spoiled or void, it gets set aside. It's discounted. That's how it works. But what 38 Degrees are doing is their role is like a newspaper publisher. They aren't the court and they're not the government. And the petitions to the government, they're merely duplicating it for you. They're merely publishing your petition for you, really, facilitator. And they're starting to, they've intervened too much. They wanted to take it seriously because they wanted it to be run properly, but they're not their petitions and they're not their cases, and they've only got limited rights of intervention. They've provided private messaging on their website, and these petitions are legal cases to the government. Like its status is like a criminal or civil case. And when you're sending private mail to individuals or to only certain people that's not published like on the website openly for everyone to view, that is a legal communication. The petition is a legal case. If you read the Professor Karen Bowie paper from Glasgow University, which is on Google PDF, that is very, very clear what you're dealing with. You can't just read people's mail or block it and intercept it. You can't do that. It's a legal case. So 38 Degrees take it seriously, but they've taken serious in the wrong way. They've almost like, they've almost like gone, this is serious, we've got to be, proper serious about this because, it's Parliament and the British government. But instead of like being serious the right way, they've kind of like gone serious the wrong way, and they've kind of like gone over to the corporate entities side, which is sort of taking over side, and censorship and control, intervention, and all this policy creation, which is literally corroding rights, which is what YouTube and Google and Facebook have started to do. Plus, the government aided them. Well, the government directed them through all 77th Brigade, taking stuff down. The government, instead of telling people to take things down, like Robert F. Kennedy's videos or Marianne Williamson, official candidates, they should be telling the platforms to put them back up, to keep the content up, which is what the Advertising Standards Agency should be doing, and Ofcom, because they're the departments of governance of adverts. Governing is about what you can and can't do, not just about what you can't do. It's about to govern something. It's not just to say you can't do it, it's to say you can do it or you have to do it. And the Advertising Standards Agency and Ofcom are not standing up for us and advocating us when there's a requirement to publish, to share, even a direction on the petitions committee website. Share this petition on Facebook. Share the petition, which includes the promo material for it, any adverts you want to do for it with like any graphics or words or links, not just the actual document. to advertise it and promote it. Any channel and any video on YouTube that uploads what is advertising or promoting your petitions or discussing it or talking about it, that is an advert, whether you've paid for it or not. Whether you've gone through Google Ads or whether you've just got a channel, you're still advertising the petition, right? Or talking about it or promoting it, right? And we have got that through the Town and Country Planning Act on digital devices, and whether it's illuminated or not. It is. And no one is telling YouTube or Facebook or Google to keep them up or put them up. Now, they're hosting lots of different political content. The rights apply to it when it's political content. You can't strip the law away from something for what the law applies to, whether it's private or not. Smoking law applies to smoking, no matter whether you're in a private house or outside. To find out what the smoking law is, you read the smoking law, right? It tells you what you can and can't do in private or in public. With the petitioning, whenever you've got a political video on YouTube, the law tells you what you can and can't do on private or public websites, not Google. Google don't tell you what you can and can't do in their policy, because the law tells them whether they can have a policy or not. The law says that you can't be held to any commitments. Now, we made these laws up so that the local council uses that law when it publishes notices. It's a legal requirement to publish a notice in the newspaper for certain road closures and roadworks. Now, why aren't the newspapers saying, we don't have to publish that? They can't, because they have to. It's a legal requirement, right? Whether it's in the London Gazette or it says at least one major newspaper, you can choose, right? They've got a portion of their company has rights reserved for democratic functionality, right? It's almost like they're saying all rights reserved. They have to. They've got to do it. And also, I would say that without question, without doubt, the section if you have got a legal case with HM government's courts and you have to put a witness statement out, or you want to, or you need to, you haven't got enough witnesses or you haven't got enough evidence for your case, you would publish that in the newspaper, and that would be democratic function through the use of an enactment. And for our petitions, also for elections. So they've got to, it's a private company, but, they're now making these policies up and trying to say they can do what they want. Why don't they just make a policy up to say, we don't even have to apply to any law. We don't even have to apply to employment law doesn't apply to YouTube. Okay then, I'd like to see them try and make that policy up. Employment law doesn't apply to YouTube. Try it. No law applies to YouTube. Whoa, YouTube have invented a genius policy. This is genius. The law doesn't apply to us. If you consent to use this platform, none of the law applies. It's like a cage fight with Elon Musk and Mark Zuckerberg. You can just fight each other and beat each other to death. It's like the death house. You can enter this, platform and do what you want. No, they can't. They can't just make up what policy they want. And they can't get you to consent to it. There are certain rights that we've got that they can't take away, and you can't even consent to it. I mean, look at medical treatment, the right to an ambulance or a fire engine going round to the Google building and so forth. I mean, what are Google going to do? We're just going to let the building burn down. We don't want the fire brigade to put it out. It might be dangerous to other buildings. They just can't. Because if they could do that, then everyone could just say, it's my private house. The law doesn't apply. You could have loads of guests around at a party and just beat them all and hide them in the cellar and say, they all consented to it. Well, How can you prove that? Well, they consented verbally. Now they're all dead, but they can't confirm that. But I can guarantee you they verbally consented. Oh, we need to have it in writing. This is it. These big corporations and companies now, what they're doing is, with all these apps that are scanning your phone and looking at your photos, and every time you take a photograph, Google instantly checks it, and then it's giving back reflective pictures before you've even got back in the house. And you can't deactivate it, or it's on an app that's hard to deactivate, or they really want to deter you from deactivating it, or it's disguised as part of another app like a Trojan. That's what's happening on my Oppo phone. If I turn off my standard image editor to stop Google looking at my photos, my phone won't work. I can't edit anything. I can't even look at photos. They've conned us. They're getting us to consent to all this, right? Consent, accept, submit. You're giving up, and they've now got these policies where they're saying, "Oh, we can reject you for any reason or no reason." Well, how do you know? When someone's telling you some rules, you need to know what the rules are. If you go into a cricket club and you've got to abide by the rules have got to be on the wall and read them, or you don't know what they are, right? Unless they say the rules are, we can make up whatever rules we want at any time. But how would they do that in court if you went to court and then you challenged them on something, and then they said, "Oh, I'm sorry, Your Honour, our policy is we can do what we want, and our rules are we can make up our own rules," and the members consented to that. How can you define the rules if there aren't any? That's where YouTube are with it at the moment. They've got all these rules up, and then they're taking material down, right? And they're just lying. I had videos taken down. Oh, it's got COVID misinformation in it. It didn't have any COVID misinformation in it. I never mentioned COVID once in it. And then I badger them on Twitter, and then eventually they admit, "Oh yeah, there was nothing wrong with that video. But we're not putting it back up because of your other channel had a strike, which we took down because it had sexual content in it." Well, yeah, but sexual content is only a strike, one strike. Why are you taking my main channel down? I didn't have 3 strikes. I only had 1. Oh, no, it was serious. It was serious breach. No, the serious breach policy says that serious violations are violent, dangerous, illegal, or harmful acts, right? That's dangerous. It doesn't say sexual. And on the sexual is a normal strike. How can you have, what's the difference between a normal serious one and like a very serious one? Well, the very serious sexual one clearly is dangerous sex, harmful sex, violent sex, or illegal sex. Otherwise, it's just sex. And a sexual content policy violation is a strike, not having your channel taken down. So YouTube, they're just lying about the regulations. They're just lying about the rules. And this is where they are with Robert F. Kennedy, why he's taken a legal challenge up against them. And the thing is, my channel, all of the videos on there and the purpose of them is for the petition, to talk about the petition and promotion of the petition, and that is protected. You can't take away the rights that govern petitions from petitions. It gets the law applied to it everywhere and anywhere for the nature of what classification is. And that is the classification E and F, which is covered by the Town and Country Planning on digital and illuminated devices. And the Advertising Standards Agency and the Ofcom are not governing our political adverts. They can't actually take them down because they're protected, but there is a part of governance. In order to govern something means that you apply the law to it, and applying the law to it means that it has to be published through the requirement of the enactment, through directions from Parliament and orders, which are on the Petitions Committee website. It says Facebook, Twitter, not excluding YouTube. Now, the problem is that instead of Parliament and the Petitions Committee or your local MP or the Advertising Standards Agency or Ofcom, any of those or all of those saying to YouTube, "Oh, put these channels back up you've taken down. These are protected. There's a requirement to publish. What they've done is they've actually been using the 77th Brigade and Battalion to take it down illegally. Or they claim, some have been taken down. They were taking down foreign ones. But they said that Big Brother Watch said that a lot of, Patriots channels got taken down, English people's. This is the problem with Biden. He's trying to silence Robert F. Kennedy Jr. and he's cheating. This Parliament have actually got no respect and absolutely zero. They're not applying our rights. They don't respect our rights and they don't care about our rights. And whether it's misinformation or not, in a case, you're trying the information. You're not just publishing it in a magazine for entertainment. You're not talking in the pub. You're not talking when you're in the shops. You're bringing a case and you're trying the information like in a criminal or legal case. And even if Parliament can make a decision on that information or not, you've got a right to ask the people. Now, with the Petitions Committee, right, they don't want to publish it unless they approve it. But they're letting you publish it on, like, change.org or 38 Degrees, third party, but they're not letting you publish it on Parliament's website if they don't like your case, if they claim they don't understand it. They claim that they're only letting you put links that are Parliament government links. So how can you attach your evidence if your evidence is on another website? Well, you're trying the information. They just don't want to publish it on the Parliament website because they don't want to look bad. But yet, the public will decide on that. The procedures for petitions is like a court case with a jury in a different order of proceedings. It's not investigation, submit to court, have a hearing, have a trial with a jury. The proceedings for the legal case of petition to Parliament are get the evidence and create the case, go to the wider public grand jury, the ultimate everyone, with the evidence, see if the public agree with it or not, and try and convince as many people as you can, try the information, then once you've got your evidence of public agreement and support, the jury, then the elected MPs, our advocates in the Palace of Westminster, will debate it and put it through on what they think after the public. And if we don't like what the ministers think, we can override them with a referendum by collecting more support from the public. We can make the government rename day as night and night as day if we want. We can make them change red to blue. But this is what the government do anyway. They're like renaming, enlightenment is now woke. And it doesn't mean understanding ultimate insight. Woke now means compliance with ridiculous regulations and beliefs. Don't do this, don't do that. Only speak properly. That's woke. It's effectively Parliament like changing the name of things. Day night means day and day means night. Red means blue and blue means red. Now the scrapped enlightenment for woke and left means right and right means left. The government love doing it. Now there are liberals, according to George Galloway. Oh no, the Tories are our liberals. No, they're not liberals. This is the problem. They're getting us done. They're trying to say that we're giving misinformation when they are when something is really winning and doing good. They change the meaning of it and pull out a new term so they can derail it. So no, everyone's becoming enlightened now. Oh no, it's woke. Everyone's woken up. Everyone's awake and woke. Everyone's woken up to the truth. Well, no, that's been used for complying with their ridiculous new beliefs and laws, obsessive compulsive behavior, complying with stupid regulations, don't look left, don't look right, don't speak to anyone, don't look at anyone, insane conditions that no one would agree to, like these platforms, we can remove anything for any reason, for no reason or whatever reason, they didn't even have to be written down reason, like that, which is just stupid. So the Petitions Committee as well as the Advertising Standards Agency and Ofcom and the local MPs, they are all doing this thing, which is set out in the Bill of Rights. MPs, local councillors, and judges. They are undermining our rights, and it's illegal. And they are all doing this when that bill is there to prevent them from doing it. And added to that equation now is these new massive platform bosses, like, YouTube, Facebook, Mark Zuckerberg. They've come into the equation because it's not just down to the MPs and the councillors and the judges now. We've got what Parliament have been doing is they've allowed these platforms to kind of take authority that should be reserved for the courts or should be reserved for MPs or councillors. And these platforms now are pulling people's things down, subjecting you to these policies. When a lot of the services were public owned, and then David Cameron wanted to sell them all off. A lot of the newspapers were private, but that's why we secure the rights through private companies. Every company has a certificate from Companies House, and it is under the coat of arms of the government, and that company is formed only under the conditions of the country and the government. And that is kind of how you interpret why the companies are limited. They're a limited company. They're limited to what they can and can't do. And they're limited to what they have to do. And that is where the rights come into it. The Bill of Rights, and newspapers are limited to what they can't just do what the hell they want. That's why it's a limited company. They're limited to what they want. It's Companies House of the government. It's the government's companies, really, which is, maybe the taxpayers. They're formed on agreement with the people, and that's why we are allowed to have political videos and content through YouTube, Facebook. But the MPs aren't doing anything to help us at the moment. In fact, they're working against us. They're trying to, with Russell Brand, they're trying to intervene, like with Rumble. So, also similarly with the construction, and as I was making this video is just meant to be to Stonehenge a campaign, but once I got going, I was thinking, look, I've got to tell the whole thing, the big picture of where we are and what's going on, because otherwise, you need to know where we stand with those petition websites, what the situation is, where we stand with Parliament, and where we stand with these platforms and the contractors. Because you can't have it with 38 degrees, you can't just have people coming along and smashing the petition, sabotaging it with dodgy signatures, because that derails it. It's like someone putting logs on a railway track and then it crashing into it and derailing the train. When you're running a petition to government, no matter whether it's been published in the newspaper or whether you're publishing it on 38 degrees, the other party can't derail it because it's a legal case. It's got a legal status, and it's your evidence you've collected, and I haven't got any other copies of my evidence. All those videos on YouTube, they're my only copies, and they can't take my evidence, seize my evidence off me because they're not a court. They don't have a right to take my evidence away from me because they've stolen it from me and I don't have the evidence. I don't have any other copies. This is the thing. The newspapers provide a service, right? They provide printing and they distribute. It's not really any of their business what you're printing, as long as it complies with the law of England, right? If all these companies could just deny service, we wouldn't be able to function politically, because it's not just actually YouTube and Facebook, and it's not just 38 degrees, and it's not just like BT being able to you pay for the connection, the phone line. You pick up the phone and it's connected. There's a line there. Like what you speak down the phone is none of the phone company's business. If you speak to someone and you threaten them, then they can ring the police up. But it's nothing to do with the phone company. You paid for a line in the service. And same with the mail. You paid for letters getting delivered. You pay someone to deliver your mail, and they don't read the letter. It's private unless it gets lost and they've got to open it for customs or whatever. That's different. But legal letters are meant to be confidential. It's nothing to do with Royal Mail. That's really YouTube's position, right? As long as you're complying with the law and when you have a legal right or requirement, it's not really any of YouTube's business. But they're starting to now come out with stuff like, oh, it's against the values of the company or this or that. Well, they're trying to reshape the whole of the society in the world. They've got too big, and they really the government like it because they can use YouTube to bosses, but they haven't got a legal right to bosses when it's protected category class of material, and that is the class E and F when it comes to adverts. And same as 38 Degrees, if you've got some dud signatures on there, to be honest, it's the local council's responsibility and the government's responsibility. It's not actually any business to do with 38 Degrees. Now, if they want to keep their website free of, spam, junk, whatever, if they, really they shouldn't even be removing those emails, because those emails, if they're dodgy, if someone brought dodgy emails, firstly, I couldn't even check them, so I'm not even liable myself. The other point is this. There's another act of law called the Petitions Election 1960. And that law is not about having petitions and elections. It's for checking them for validity. If an election or petitions are meant to be, if someone accuses it of being dodgy, there's a special legal procedure for it. Now, 38 Degrees have not called that special procedure. There's a special procedure in 1960 Act for validating fraudulent elections and petitions, right? Now, I haven't, I didn't add those signatures, someone else did. And at the end of the day, there are very, very few elections that use that procedure to bring checking if someone wants to challenge the legitimacy of an election or petitions. Because at the most point, if there's any doubt about any signatures or votes or data, they're just set aside and not counted. That's what you do. And that's why you need the data to check them, right? If you want to challenge it legally, it's not challenged by a policy. It's not challenged by a third party taking command, taking authority. It's got its own actual legal process, which is that 1960 regulation, at least for elections. But, I believe it is the same. The title of it is Petitions Elections. So, Now, and coming on to that subject of that title of that act, the title of that act is misleading as itself because it says election petitions 1960. It makes you think that's an act for doing petitions, but and elections, but it's not. That act is for validating them. But when you read the title of the act, it doesn't make it sound like that. It doesn't say, the Elections Validation Act. So the title's kind of misleading. Now, I've been speaking for an hour and 8 minutes, and I know that it's hard work. I know that people do not want to listen to me go on and on and on about this for over an hour. It's probably like torture or earache, but it's torture being put through this by these other people. It's torture being put through this by the MPs, by the courts, by the government. It's torture being put through it altogether, right? This act here, the local authorities, referendums, petitions, England, 2011, right? This has been up on the screen the whole time I've been talking for an hour. and 8 minutes, right? Now, this law, this act is for local referendums, petitioning for local referendums, right? If you believe there is another act besides this one, I want to see it. I'd love to see it. I really, 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 really want to see it. Where is it? Right? Where's the other act? If there is one, I really, really want to see it. Or if this is it, if this is the only act. Now, there is an act that refers to having national referendums, but that is only a small section of the act. They're making some of these acts difficult to find. Not all of them appear in the search results. That tumultuous petitioning act wasn't appearing and wasn't listed. It's only just popped up recently, suddenly magically appeared, right? This act is seriously critically important. Now, the act, this is a framework, proceedings, procedurals for having local referendums in a local area. But what is the petition or referendum about, right? What is the petition or referendum about? Well, it says that the referendum or petition is about the framework of the council, about changing the framework of the council, right? But under the 1688 bill, you've got the right to petition the government over any subject you want to. Any subject. It is the right of the subjects. Poetically, the poet laureate has written, I am talking about a subject. What is this subject? Golf, cricket, tennis, bananas. You pick a topic, pick a subject. I am a subject. All of the citizens are subjects of the king. It is the right of every subject to petition about whatever subject they want, because they have the choice. What concerns them, what matters to them, what are the subjects that arise, what subjects emanate from me, what subjects emanate from the subject, what topics come out of my mouth, what ideas come out of my head, what subjects emanate from the subject. It is the right of the subjects to be, to emanate, to shine, right? That is the poet laureate in the right of the subjects, right? So you've got the right of any subject. You can petition for any subject you want. So how could you be restricted to what you could petition about? This act is a framework for having local referendums, for petitioning for them. But surely you cannot only have a local referendum on one thing, which is the framework of the council in this act. So if you wanted a local referendum on something else, to petition for one over something else, what would you be looking for? You would be looking for the act that deals with it. The framework. The framework. Where is it? What's this? A framework for getting a local referendum by petition. All right, that's what I'm after. But it's about having one for the framework of the council. Now, you have to laugh. You have to laugh at the irony in it. And this is what I really, really want Stonehenge Action Group and their lawyers, right, to look into. If there is another act, where is it? If there is another set of procedure rules, where are they? Now, because I want to have a local referendum in Wiltshire about Stonehenge and override the council. Everyone on the council who has been in favour of the tunnel, all of the land and the change in the governance of the land and block the Department of Transport by overriding a local government authority. You can do it. And when people were petitioning Parliament about 15-minute cities, wanting to get the rules changed so councils can't have them, instead of saying, okay, yeah, we'll do that, we'll change the rules for England, they said, oh, get lost, scoot off, go away, go see the local council, petition the local council. Why didn't Parliament say that to Stonehenge petition? Go see Wiltshire Council first. Because they get a massive support and you get enough for a referendum. And the Department of Transport, Highways England, don't want there to be a big petition. They want there to be a local council big petition, because then they could get, the people could decide. They don't want the people to decide. The Department of Transport, Highways England don't want the people to decide. Now, this is kind of where I'm going to bring it all full circle. At the start of this, when I was talking about big corporate entities, Google, Facebook, but also in construction, also in Ireland with like this Glenjury Dolmen and building apartment blocks next to ancient sites, and the fact they've tried to take away the right to object and you've got to pay €20 to make an observation when, you know, if it was in England, you couldn't do that. You can't charge people for complaints in government. That's what they were trying to do in England, charge people for complaints and petitioning. And they abolished that. They made it illegal. That's in Professor Karen Bowie's paper. That's one of the commitments that are illegal, to hold you to a commitment, you know. So in Ireland, really, it's joke, because in Southern Ireland, they don't have the Bill of Rights, apparently, but so they've started charging people to submit an observation, which in England, that would be illegal, against the liberties and freedoms of the realm. You can't charge people money for submitting complaints. So that's how, even in Ireland, when they've got all these ancient sites, in Ireland, when they've got all these preservation and protection things, it's how the corporate global elite have snuck in through the contracting sector, through like this Cairn Homes, through just building generally, through the contractors and through big developers who've got big plans, put big plans on the table. They've got big money, big funding. Bill Gates, you know, popping up with X money and making new departments for them. You know, and they've snuck away the rights, you know, the freedoms and liberties in Ireland by charging them even money to make a comment, to even submit, to even have a right to have a look. You know, what's going on here? Nothing to see here. You know, unless you give me €20, you can't even have a look. So that's how. So what I really want to communicate to Stonehenge, and I know this is a hell of a long video and it's a lot to take in, but how Stonehenge Tunnel is connected to what is happening to the ancient sites in Ireland. And then you've got, you know, they recruit individuals, you know, on social media and through Facebook and through groups, like that young teenage lad who's just gone and cut down that tree on Hadrian's Wall. I think they're provoking people through social media, influencing people, encouraging people to, you know, because they're, you know, clearly on fighting for a cause that is against heritage and countryside protection. You know, they've got individuals acting as well. You know, you had that crooked pub was demolished in Birmingham as well. They didn't have the right to do that. So, you know, I see a corporate construction entity that it's got big plans for the world and England, and its big plans are, like Keir Starmer is advocating, you know, powerhouses, big industry, aeroplane dynamics, industrial estates, whether you like it or not, whether you object to them or not, you know, cycle lanes, whether you want them or not, you know, all the superhighways, HS2, all these big developments. And we aren't really getting a say. The only thing they give you is these public consultations, and they don't have to actually use the data to make the decision. It's just meant to be like to get a general idea. Now, so I'll try and tie this into the Stonehenge Tunnel situation now. Well, I'm not going to try to, I am going to. How this fits into the Stonehenge Tunnel situation is this, right? They really don't want the local people to have a say in the matter. They only want you to have a vote in an election for a party, right? And people usually only vote Tory or Conservative. Now, if Tory and Conservative are both pushing all these construction agendas generally in the same direction, you aren't really having a say. They don't want the local people to really have a say whether or not we have cycle lanes or 15-minute cities or Stonehenge Tunnel or the apartments being built at Glendury Dolmen Valley or the industrial estate that's coming to a field near you, a pony field near you. The government want to be the people who make the decision. The ministers, the local council chamber, the Department of Transport, they want to decide. They decide. We've already had court cases from Rollo Morgfling and the Stonehenge campaigns, which were won, and the government just ignored it, right? They didn't do anything. There was a court case won on HS2, that Mark Kerr, and immediately the contractors went and got a lawyer and got it quashed straight away because they've got infinite funding, these people, right? So what they really don't want you to be able to do is have the local people have a say. And local referendums are a way not only to have a say, but to override the local council decision, to override the local councillors. And it's actually, so that's why we need to know what the framework is to have them and what the rules are. Now, as far as I can find, and this is where I want to be proved wrong, this is the part where I'm openly saying, am I right or am I wrong? Because I don't think I'm wrong about the rest of it. This is the part where I'm asking, where is the act? Is this it? Is there another act? And if there isn't another act, then this must be the act, which sets out the framework and proceedings for obtaining a local referendum. And you should be able to have one over anything you want, over any subject, because it's the right of the subjects to petition His Majesty's government, His Majesty's chamber, His Majesty's local council chamber with the mace in there. And it is important, because to have local referendums according to this, if this is the act, if not show me which is, you only need to gather a strength of signatures which equals number in strength to the equivalent of what 5% of the electorate is. And that's not many. In terms, when you're considering what has been submitted to Parliament, it's only 5%. And in Wiltshire, what is 5% in Wiltshire is 26,000 signatures, which isn't actually really that many when it's something that a lot of people have an interest, a right and a privilege in. And it's really, really important that on Wiltshire Council website, they concur that really anyone in England can sign a Wiltshire petition if you've got an interest in it or use the facilities or even work in the area, not a resident, because the petition for the referendum isn't the referendum. You're just asking for one. The referendum is the council asking everyone what their opinion is. and getting an answer, every single person in the county will be asked and they will give an answer, or they will keep quiet. That is what the referendum is. So everyone in Wiltshire will be asked. That is what the referendum is. But to petition for the referendum, to get that triggered, to have that object, that thing where, what does this thing do? You press a button and every single person tells you what their opinion is, right? And it's recorded. To have that, you petition for it, right? But anyone in England can petition His Majesty's governments. Anyone. All you need to do is be interested in it, have an interest in it, or care about it. And this is where I say it's very difficult for you to get anyone interested in a park in Rotherham, because not many people are interested in parks in Rotherham. So the subjects wouldn't have an interest in a park in Rotherham, let alone a right or a privilege, right? But many, many people have an interest in Stonehenge. They're interested. They have an opinion on it. They want to have a say in it. And as they're all subjects of the realm, of the kingdom, they've got a right to petition the king, His Majesty, his local council, or parliament, because it's still the same authority with a mace, right? So if the whole country have an interest in Stonehenge, they can petition Wiltshire Council into a referendum by equaling 5% of their electorate to show that there is great public concern. And it's only the same as in the Inquiries Act, in the 2005 Inquiries Act, Part 1, A and B, when either you've got to have very strong compelling evidence or evidence of public concern in order for the minister to action it. You're essentially showing the council that there's a lot of concern in the country for it, you know? So that's what you're doing. And I think that because there's over 200,000 signatures from the Stonehenge action groups amalgamated, they're all petitions to His Majesty's government. All of them, right? And this framework we're looking at, right? There are only some very, very basic requirements. If you can, this is what I'm wanting Stonehenge action groups and their lawyers to look into. And I've read it. I think all you need to have is make sure all the person's data is on the petition and it's identifiable. And you can amalgamate any petitions which are on the same topic or asking or covering the same issues, right? Anyone can amalgamate them together, right? They're all petitions to His Majesty, right? And they're all on the same subject. And you can use them, therefore. So anyone can amalgamate them together and they can be used for His Majesty's government. Now, if you read Peter Ackroyd, the government were always passing petitions between departments and to different areas internally. They were always doing that. So there's nothing stopping anything that's been submitted to Parliament and the Chamber being passed to Wiltshire Council or any committee whatsoever. Nothing at all. They were passed around all the time internally, petitions. There's over 26,000 valid English signatures on those amalgamated petitions, and I strongly believe, beyond reasonable doubt, that Wiltshire are entitled to a referendum on that tunnel. They are. And the reason they don't want us to have one is because they don't want us to have local referendums at all. They don't want to acknowledge that they exist or that, who has them? But why don't they have them? And I'll tell you the reason why you don't have them. Because then people would know about them and people would be having them more. There will be loads of them. And the government don't want to have loads of them. Why? And this is my crescendo point, is because they don't want us to make decisions and override the council ever. They want the council to make decisions. Why? Because they've got something called strategic planning. They've got their own plans, big plans into the future. Oh, it's all planned out. Phase 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 in everything. And the council and big corporate entities who have bought everything up, like Bill Gates, Zuckerberg, Musk, and BlackRock Vanguard, who now own all these companies' shares. JCB, they're supplying the diggers for everything in Ireland. They're supplying the diggers for everything at Stonehenge. They're supplying the hard hats for all the workers in Ireland, in England. They're supplying all of the engineering equipment. You name it, they own it. All of the big companies, Balfour Beat Me, Care, the rest of it, they own them, right? They've got their architects, their designers, their developers. They've got all the money that they've made from us and government contracts. They're the ones putting the ideas on the table. They're the ones putting the 15-minute city ideas, the ideas for the cycle lanes, for scrapping driving, for pulling trees up, for, penetrating the landscape with big phallic, tunnels that symbolise, being shafted on Stonehenge, attacking ancient sites in Ireland like Glendruid, Dolmen, without even people having to have a say in it unless they give €20 over, which would be illegal in England, and what is behind that force? What is behind that power is the contractors, and who owns them? Well, I suggest it is Charles. It's Charles. And I believe that it's in his will that he doesn't want to hand over, and this is why no one knows really who is in charge of BlackRock Vanguard. And they don't want us to decide. And local referendums should be, people are getting 100,000 signatures to government in all kinds of things. And you can't put links on there. They're restricting how many characters you can type in and what words you can put. They want to make sure you submit a very, very weak, feeble case, when the standard of casework that should be submissible on that Parliament website should really write off any small claims court website or any other criminal case, in England. You're looking at getting the laws in England made or changed. It should be next level. But instead we're given a primary school form, which is an insult to the intellect of mankind. Martin Day and the Petitions Committee are literally a disgrace to the country, to a democracy. Rishi Sunak is complaining that, children aren't as good as mathematics, yet he is treating us adults as worse than primary school children with that Petitions Committee form and with these local referendums. And that's why it's important. And then my final point, other than that, is that with Stonehenge Tunnel, there is religious site protection, United Nations religious site protection. And if you search on the internet, there is a PDF form which covers it. We don't get United Nations religious site protection hardly, because we don't know. No one is saying what religion it is that you're protecting. The Taj Mahal has got it. They've got it for Mecca. Mecca have got it for Islam. Petra, carved temples in rock, right? Even churches, Canterbury Cathedral. All this religious site protection. It's not UNESCO, it's not World Heritage Site, it's not just, first grade list of building. Who uses the United Nations Religious Site Protection? It says that it's actually criminal, illegal to spoil or attack a religious site. Yet archaeologists are doing it every day of the week because they like digging them up, but nobody even uses that. What happens if it's your ancestors' burial? What happens if it's your ancestors' cairn? What happens if it's your ancestors' remains? No one's claiming it. This is the thing. You could stop, and that's where Charles comes in. We've been conquered, right? 1066, we've officially been conquered, and it's celebrated with fireworks and ongoing, oh, come let us adore him, and, God save the king. All this, statues of Sir Walter Raleigh, statues of Sir Winston Churchill, all these concrete monuments and memories, all in the glory of the king, right? But all of these ancient sites, Stonehenge, Glengerry Dolmen, these are not Charles's. They're not the English monarchy's sites. They are conquered sites. I don't really think that they want to have fireworks about them because it makes them look, they're not, we haven't been conquered anymore if we start celebrating them, and that's my opinion. And what evidence I have for that is my 38 Degrees petition. My 38 Degrees petition is the evidence that the royals have been spoiling and targeting ancient sites, prehistoric sites from before the conquest. Starting with, putting the Victoria Tower on Castle Hill, and then proceeding to ruin further with the imperial chemical industries, the whole river system, and spoiling the entrance to that special valley with the sacred hill in the middle of it. And then when the Queen gets coronated around 1954, with precision timing, they build on top of it. Like they're creeping up to it all the time. And then they bang a housing estate on the top of it, right? So, and then they completely build around it and write the whole thing off. And it doesn't even get any archaeological acknowledgement from Varley. Only the other one does. When they're two ancient sites, they're within the exact distance apart, like very contemporary ones at Worthing, Sisbury, Ring Hill Fort, and Shanktonbury, Ring Hill Fort, at Battlesbury, Scratchbury, Middle Hill, Warminster. Again, that is evidence. So we've had our ancient site spoiled, and then they quarried into the side of it to add insult to injury. And now we've got Incora aeroplane parts company popping up on an industrial estate that no one wanted, what everyone objected to, 10 years or 5-10 years in a row, multiple times they objected, yet why is this Incora being built? It's symbolic. The royals like to use names and naming this symbolically. And when they win, they mark their victory with more naming and spoiling. They've done it here. J.J.R. Tolkien, who wrote Lord of the Rings, was active in this area. He was University Leeds professor. And then he was here. And he had friends here, and he even wrote a foreword to a book which makes reference to these ancient sites. And there's some symbology in the Mordor motifs and the Mordor sites, the tower with the eye, and the the mountain at the side of the mountains, which is like Castle Hill at the side of the Pennines, you know, and the tower on the hill is, he was here. He was here. And he was here teaching. And he was here writing forwards in books. And those motifs, he didn't like the industry and the smog, which they'd started building all the industry and the smog. He was really against it. And that's what he based Mordor on. And the entrance to this valley here, where the Imperial Chemical Industries is built, is just exactly like the entrance to Mordor. Right? So that is very, very compelling evidence that Tolkien, he got ideas for his book while he was here. And it's a prehistoric ancient site, which the Romans talked about the Brigantes, but they said, you know, they didn't actually disclose ultimately where it was. And they were talking about Anglesey with the stronghold. Yet, building of York with that, they've got a mound in York with a castle on that. And they didn't build a city here, they built a city in York instead. They left it alone here. But that castle on the mound at York is symbolic of this site that I'm talking about here. This evidence that I've got is very, very true and compelling. But yet 38 Degrees has gone and taken it down. It's like it's been sabotaged. Yet I don't even need the signatures on there because the evidence I've got, the information that I'm trying in the case is compelling enough, right? Now, why has that got anything to do with Stonehenge? Well, because I think that this entity, this force, I'll call it Royal Entity Force, but it's now Corporate Entity Force, like Black Rock Vanguard Force. It doesn't like particularly the prehistory of England and heritage of England, and I don't know why, but it doesn't. And I think that if it can mislead or con you into thinking something's good or for the good, but it's actually not good. Like the Imperial Chemical Industries, they made everyone believe that it was the best thing since sliced bread, but it wasn't. The Imperial Chemical Industries is now knocking out this toxic paraquat chemical, right, which Extinction Rebellion are trying to stop. The Stonehenge Tunnel has been sold as something good, but it is going to symbolically and energetically shaft the landscape, and it's almost like, you know, shafting it, basically. Big sex with a big hole tunnel, you know. Now, there are some ancient sites which have been left alone, like Hembury Cross, which is like a big dragon shape. It's definitely got connections to the Arthur Pendragon myth and the Welsh flag, but it gets undermined. It's been left alone and not spoiled, but it doesn't get a lot of attention. But yet it's a huge dragon shape, you know, where Exeter is, the entrance to England, you know. There was a lot of damage done to the Worthing Hill forts when they were training for the war. They got torn up by tanks. The whole archaeology sector believes that it's doing good, but there's a lot of damage it does as well. I really think that they've got all of the universities and professors misled to think that they're doing... There's nothing wrong with making discoveries and finding things, but a lot of things don't need to be dug or shouldn't be dug, particularly when there's United Nations religious site protection. Some of these sites were religious sites or had people's remains in them, right? So, you know, there's a lot of damage being done by the universities in the name of science and discovery, which is really helpful to this side that likes to damage and destroy things. Scotland has been left alone quite a lot, but, you know, if the site can be made to help, then it does actually get celebrated. Like, the Ridgeway has had it really good. The Ridgeway with the Uffington Horse and the Little Longbarrow and the Hill Fort there, they've really, really had a good ride, because it is a Celtic, a prehistoric site and valley with multiple sites there and the White Horse. But it does get tied into that whole Oxford, Eton kind of countryside sort of spin on things. It's countryside, it's in a nice area, it gets tourists there, but it doesn't necessarily fly a flag for anything that would be kind of, anti-royalist or whatever. And Stonehenge hasn't really, but now that now that we're starting to find out what's happening with all of the food, all of the corporate entities haven't been really giving us very good food. Sperm counts dropped 50% since the war, which is not good. Microbiome in the guts have been really, really suffering, which creates a lot of neurotransmitters affecting people's attention and memory. As we're finding out all these things, and as Google are getting access to our mobile phones and our photos without authorization, without permission, they're forced consent Trojans, and it's kind of all too late now, and they're taking material down from YouTube. They're pulling Russell Brand down, just as Neil Oliver and Vobes and John Campbell, are all rising up. This corporate elite globalist industrial military complex is really pushing control onto the devices. 38 Degrees aren't helping with it. And I think that, I know this, it's a tough sell, but I'm selling it anyway, right? Stonehenge, they've kind of been okay with Stonehenge until now. And it was a really, really free and happy festival, and they really went and ruined it by putting like a concrete, not the main visitor centre that's far away, but where people used to park in 2004, 2005, there was like a field with a campsite where everyone used to go to, and they put a very, very horrible concrete building there, which it doesn't feel like Newgrange or West Kennet when you're inside it. It's all concrete inside it, and it's like got a cafe that's selling cake and sugars and all these things that really aren't that good for us. It feels like you're in a prison. It doesn't feel like you're in West Kennet Longbarrow or Newgrange or Stony Littleton. It feels like some sort of prison cell like they had on Doctor Who when Jodie Whittaker was in that prison cell with the rhinos. It feels kind of like that. And I think, despite what the Stonehenge Visitor Centre people think, all these people who like Stonehenge, who work at the Visitor Centre, and Mike Parker Pearson and all the archaeologists, there are darker forces at work that those people don't cotton on to. The same kind of with Tolkien, really. And that visitor site being put there, it really didn't help. It really was a bad move, And the thing with the tunnel, the thing with Stonehenge is you see it. When you drive past it, if you're going, say, to Salisbury, like, I'll be going past Stonehenge today, I'll be able to see it. And it keeps it in the public's memory. It's always been in the newspaper, Stonehenge. If you put a tunnel there and no one sees it when they drive past it anymore, even if it does make it a lot more natural around it, it will gradually fall. People won't see it all the time, travellers or passers-by. And that will kind of remove it from the memory somewhat. And that's what I really think that they will want to do, like they've done with Pembury Cross, really, and our ancient site. There's not even acknowledged as an ancient site, and there isn't any other. It's right in the middle of the country and right on a major river and right by major hills where the river starts. There's no question about our ancient site. The evidence is very, 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 very compelling. Based on the evidence of what they've done to our ancient site, I know they haven't spoiled all of them, but there are certain key ones that mean something. They have a certain symbology to them, and to celebrate them in a certain way isn't good. It doesn't make the royals look good. And it doesn't make the royals look good when they get responsible blame for all of the sperm count drop on the food industries, even though they've participated in buying it all up and steering it all in the government. So there's a lot of things happening which are all tied together. And I know that this case will be focused on Stonehenge specifically, and with the World Heritage Site status, UNESCO. But why the royals? And Charles is meant to be the head of the church of England. That's his religion, right? Christianity took over and spread out, and it became the main religion in England, right? Christianity has never really wanted to celebrate or study or want people to learn too much about the pagan religions, the prehistoric religions, or even name them. Nothing was written down. So when it comes to Stonehenge and claiming United Nations religious site protection, well, what religion is it? And which religion are you claiming? Now, there are some modern druids who claim a religion, and they do celebrations at Stonehenge like 4 times a year or whatever for like the winter and summer solstice and equinoxes, right? So it is actively being used as an ancient site, and the druids do claim religious use, but I never see the specific claim for United Nations religious site protection. I always only see UNESCO World Heritage Site or World Heritage Site status. And that religious site protection is something additional. It's an additional thing. And it's actually quite powerful. Like I said, the Taj Mahal's got it, and Canterbury Cathedral, Mecca, the pyramids, all these religious sites have got these additional protections. Now, in order to claim it for the prehistoric people who built it, not for the druids, you'd have to name it. You'd have to say what religion it was. Because to enter a claim, you have to be claiming about something, right? So you'd have to, for ancient religious site protection, you'd have to say, well, this is for a religion, right? Now, there is a claim for the modern druids. Rollo Morgfling and his druids have got a claim, but what about the people who built it, the prehistoric people? Well, Howard Crowhurst has got 5 new videos in the last couple of months on YouTube, on the Howard Crowhurst YouTube channel. And through those 5 videos, he gives professional evidence that Stonehenge was referred to by the ancient Romans and Greeks as the Temple of Apollo. And Apollo was one of the gods of the sun. And Stonehenge has got the heel stone, Stonehenge is aligned to celebrate the sun. So we've got evidence that it is the temple of the sun. And also of the earth, because all the calculations and mathematics for it actually align with other ancient sites that were built, that people possibly went out and had an influence in building those. And it sets out specific longitudes and latitudes and all the other alignments around England, which connect all the ancient sites through specific long-range measurements with our ancient site here. So Stonehenge has got an alignment connection with here in Newgrange because they make a perfect right-handed triangle from the mound. The mound at Silbury Hill is 40 metres high, and that mound here that got built on by the Queen's coronation is 40 metres high. And when you align them up with the sites at Newgrange, it makes an absolute perfect right-angled triangle. And this is what Howard Crowhurst's evidence gives. So there is a connection between Silbury Hill sites and Stonehenge in here, and also Newgrange, because those people who built it were building those sites in specific places, and they all lined up with each other over long distances. And we know they were using the stars to travel over long distances, and they were studying the sun and there were specific sun events that can only be witnessed specifically at Stonehenge for a specific alignment, and in Aberdeenshire with the moon temples. Yet there's one, the moon temples in Aberdeenshire with the recumbent stones are all aligned for the moon passing over. And to calculate those alignments, you would have to be travelling between these places, Scotland and Stonehenge. So those people were travelling to mapping out the island. They were the mappers of the island and the trajectories, and not only of longitude and latitude, but altitude as well. They could work out altitudes. So there is a connection. And what is the name of their religion then? Well, as they never wrote anything down, we don't really have any words except the word Celtic. There was a Celtic culture. So Celtic could have been the name of a religion. It does sound very, very similar to some of the counting in the Indian language, 1, 2, 3, is the same words as the counting in the Welsh Celtic language, 1, 2, 3. So we know that those languages have a prehistoric Indo-European connection. Now, the thing is, we've also got the name of Kali. Kali is one of the Indian gods, apparently where everything is born from and goes into. So it's possible that Kali, the Celtic religion, or the Kells, it's possible there's also a religious connection as well. That's my opinion. And if you read Strabo, the writer, these are in the records, like Caesar's records and Strabo writings. I've got the PDF for Strabo's writings, but you can find it. I've got it on my phone now, right? Strabo clearly documents that before the Roman Empire took over Gaul, they were participating in religious ceremonies where they painted their bodies bright colours and used a religious sacrament. Now, that is exactly what the Picts are doing. But we talk about the Picts as if they were odd, weird, separated, some weird, celebrated, separate people with weird religious practices. Yet, in the time of Strabo's writing, before all that, and before the Roman Empire, started attacking everywhere, we've got people painting their bodies like the Picts documented in Gaul, taking religious sacrament, and we've got all the temples and chambers and sites there, all around Gaul. So it's clear logic. It's beyond reasonable doubt that there was no separate weird Pictish culture of painting their bodies. It was the Celtic religion of all of North-West Europe, all of Gaul and England, possibly Spain, and the Christian culture wiped it out. It wasn't some weird Pictish practice. And anyone who's had ayahuasca, the South American spirit plants, or what Terence McKenna's subjects in magic mushrooms, knows that when you have these sacraments in large doses, you have spiritual experiences where your bodies do to transform into bright colours. So where would you get such an idea from in painting your bodies in bright colours if you ain't got it from a religious experience where your body bursts into bright colours? It's a no-brainer. And out-of-body experiences. And they said the Celts weren't afraid of dying. Well, they clearly wouldn't be afraid of dying if they'd had out-of-body experiences where it feels like they've died and come back to life and transformed their bodies into bright colours, or even having no body at all, right? Now, the Christians really did not want that religion to be taught or learned about. In fact, the Romans' main mission here was to eradicate and wipe it out. Now, Charles is the head of the church. So they don't like was to want to know or learn about that religion. Now, if you notice the universities and the lecturers and the archaeologists and the professors, they're open to talking about religions and sacraments and visionary experiences as long as it's South America. No one likes to discuss it and talk about it openly or in a professional manner, really, in England or Ireland. It's taboo in Ireland to have religious discussion that's non-Catholic. Someone put the word out that, you don't talk to Irish about religious matters, right? So people are scared about talking to Irish people about religious matters. Now, this is my opinion from all of it, right? I don't think that the church or the royals want to acknowledge a religion that can be named, which even existed in this country, which used a sacrament, which had the mathematical technologies on calculating longitude and latitude of Stonehenge, and all the chambers and temples figured into it, which could possibly now not only be named, but celebrated. And further to that, get people interested in it, and even learn about it, name or practice it. Because it's not good for Charles or the church. In fact, he doesn't like it. Because the more and more people would like or get interested in it, then the less and less people would like the other religion and the fact of we're being conquered. So there is a religious agenda to not really take seriously the United Nations religious site protection for Stonehenge. Why? Because they don't really want us to name or celebrate or have any interest in that religion. And shafting it with a tunnel is another way to add further insult to injury, let alone ripping the top off it and leaving it in ruins. So, and the thing with that religion is this, and this is critically important evidence. If there was a religion, and if that religion had some sort of belief in natural balance, harmony, grace, not just a powerful order of male dominance, but a balance, like not overeating, like, kindness, altruistic values, greed, possibly something that, the 7 deadly sins might have been based on, some kind of altruistic values. The North American Indians, even in the 17 and 1800s, were talking about this, the land, the natural, the weather, not eating all the buffalo, not killing all of the animals, only taking what you need, not having too much. That aspect, which a lot of the hippies and a lot of Extinction Rebellion believe in, this, balance of nature, is not good for the corporate machine. It's not good PR for Mark Zuckerberg's metaverse. It's not good PR for Elon Musk's Neuralink. It's not good for Larry Fink. It's not good for BlackRock Vanguard. It's not good for Rishi Sunak. What's all about economy, turnover, profits, business, employment, keeping the machine going, keep the food producing, the products and the packaging and the landfill and the chemical factories. It's just not good for them if we all start, if we were all to get interested in a religion or sacrament, which were to enlighten people, really, not this woke PR kind of wokeness, obedience, but more understanding other people, understanding why people are angry, understanding what people feel like, talking to people, philosophy, the kind of conversations you have in a student house party when you get philosophical and you see both sides of the argument. Not this divide and conquer, Google, Amazon, kind of like world domination, all of the people working for one entity. Our policies are, any reason or no reason. It's kind of like it's like some sort of Roman army takeover extension, what's happening through all the tech now. And it's hard to, connect it with Stonehenge. Why would that matter to Stonehenge? These people are all about meaning and symbology. Even when they're naming ULEZ, they named the new aeroplane engine factory, which absolutely destroyed this the village that people objected to it multiple times, and they've called it Incora, into the core. There's no doubt that company is a BlackRock Vanguard company, and it's a big pair of rods. It's a big middle finger. It's a manifesto. Every advancement they make, every march step, every Roman soldier march and step, every single legal case they win, every factory they build is a victory advancement. And they stick a flag in the floor, almost like when you're doing rock climbing and you hammer those pins in and then you clip it on and then you hammer another one and then you clip it on and then you blast the fucking metal pin into the rock face and you're climbing up. This is what they're doing. That Incora place, it's a big statement. And the thing with Charles is, it's happening. There is a big industrial estate. Boom, it's power. And he's done it. He's won. Boom. These demolition people, these builders, once they've done the deed, they've done the deed, like that teenager that's been provoked to go and cut that tree down, that sycamore at Hadrian's Wall. He's gone and cut it down and it's done now. He's gone, right? I'm sorry, but the way they've got the rules set up, whenever they build something, even when they don't have permission, even if they cheat planning permission, they only get a slap on the hand, they only get a fine. They never get a prosecution, It's been a piece of cake to them, the way they've had it set up. It makes it sound like we can object. It makes it sound like we can have a vote or a say. But I know some people have succeeded, but they're only succeeding because they're scrambling. They're having to try really hard, and they only just manage to scrape it when they are trying, Of all the successes, and usually when they succeed in one thing, like the woman in the village in Murfield who managed to stop a housing thing getting built with a massive parade and demonstration and action, they ultimately Murfield lost because that big industrial estate got there with the factory. And this is happening to Stonehenge because they've got all their McDonald's along the dual carriageway when you go past Salisbury. They got all the petrol stations selling all the drinks and products and sandwiches, and Marks and Spencer's petrol stations raking in fortunes. All of the junk food lined both sides of the dual carriageway at Salisbury. They've got it. It's there. Boom, corporate. Rishi Sunak in your face. This is it. And that's victory. And they're pushing. They're not going to give in, and they're shutting people down like Russell Brand. They're trying to shut people. And what's happening to our health? They're going to have a debate in Parliament now over these mysterious deaths, to do with, or what's happened with the pandemic. Finally, they've got a debate in Parliament, right? People have been going diabetic, cancer. It's all these companies that are causing it. You can't separate the food industry and enterprise from what's happening at Stonehenge, because it is the lorries and the increase in vehicles and traffic that are going past there to deliver to these brand new Marks and Spencer's, petrol stations, McDonald's, all these new industrial plants and units. That's why they're doing it. Although in Wales, they're meant to have been banning a lot of Wales are meant to be making a law that bans a lot of new food, actually. A lot of unhealthy food is getting banned in Wales, apparently. You know, I know that in court, they say, only bring up evidence that's relevant, right? But when there's something like Stonehenge and you're bringing a case for World Heritage status, surely you've got to say, well, what's important globally? Why is it important to the world? Why is it important to the world? And if you're starting to say, well, it's important to the world, then you've got to talk about the world and why the world thinks it's important, not just why Salisbury Plain thinks it's important. It is symbolic. And the thing is, right, the Liberal Party, the Whigs, in Cromwell's time, the Whig Party, the Liberal Party, they're the only party that has overthrown a ruler, a king. They're the only party that's defeated a British monarch. Oliver Cromwell defeated a British monarch. The Whigs, or what we call the Liberal Party, they're the only party that's done that, broke a ruler. And the Labour Party, the modern Labour Party, has never broken a ruler. In fact, I think that it's actually been helping make the rules along with the ruler. And that's one thing that you can say to George Galloway. Labour has never snapped a ruler. All it's done is, but it's made trillions of rulers. Labour Party has made trillions of rulers, but they've never broken one. This is the thing. And at the moment, that side, those ancient sites and Stonehenge, even the ones in here, which I think have been attacked, and, all the ones in Wales and Scotland, those are the sites which the Roundheads affiliated with. The Roundheads affiliate with Stonehenge. The Roundheads affiliate with Maiden Castle, with here. Liberty Island it's obvious that Liberty Island is based on this site that got built on by the shape of it and the timing for it and the fact it was featured in Hobkirk's book on Huddersfield. And our sided with Cromwell. There is history in this, and there is you can't ignore and omit something when it is part of it. And these ancient prehistoric sites, they have been spoiled by the Royalist Party. It's clearly obvious because they represent and symbolise their opposition, who they really managed to actually get rid of and wipe out. And they replaced the Liberal Party, the Whig, the Roundhead Party, with Labour. And Labour work for the Royals. They don't really oppose them. Well, they only oppose them by asking them for more money. Like Oliver Twist, please sir, can I have some more? That's basically what Labour represent. And I know that Jeremy Corbyn won't like that. George Galloway won't like that. Gordon Brown won't like that. But that is what really modern Labour represent. They represent more like Oliver Twist, please sir, can I have some more of, I'll have some more of what we're making for you, They don't represent what Oliver Cromwell represented and the Roundheads and who are affiliated with those ancient sites because they're from the pre-conquest culture, Not the ironic thing is that the Irish are not fans of Oliver Cromwell because he didn't do nice things in Ireland, but, Cromwell did, overthrow, the oppressors. And that's got a lot to do with our fundamental rights that we've got now. If we didn't have the Glorious Revolution. A lot of people in the Ancient Tracts and Ridgeways group, they aren't really aware of that frequency of thinking, but it's there. The royals have got a very, very, very keen interest. They've got King of Arms, they've got full departments and, like the Privy Council, not like modern government departments, but they've got a heraldry specialist department, and they've got the King of Arms, to do with the coats of arms. They're very interested in pedigree, in heraldry, in families, history in arms, in records. They were trying to erase a lot of family history in Ireland. So they're on the ball. They're very keen and interested in who's who and what's what in this country. And that is why they would have an interest in the ancient sites here and the fact of, the Civil War. It is a big middle finger. It is a big pair of rods. And they've spared Stonehenge. They can't, to be popular and to remain popular, they need the public to like them. Now, if they'd have been really, really opposed to Stonehenge and demolished it, it's not going to get them any fans. They've had to make out they like it. And that concrete prison thing they built near there, after 2004, really, really wasn't a nice move on it. You could say that, look at Avebury Village, is that an attack or a spoiling of the ancient grove? Well, the thing with the village is it slowly crept up. It's a village, I don't think the village at Avebury was planned to be there with the pub and the villages, and I wouldn't ever suggest that it should be ripped down. But, how that came about, it is very slow over time. Here, you've got explicit things like the Victoria Tower. It's not just the slowly expanding village of Avebury. Look at Dorchester. Why haven't you got the slowly expanding village of Dorchester? They've made very, very conscious effort not to sprawl Dorchester over to Maiden Castle. It's been kept neat and preserved with nature, and they've been proud of it. That didn't happen here, and it isn't Avebury village pubs and cottages creeping up around Avebury Henge. Here, we've got a very explicit targeted Victoria Tower, and then followed by the Imperial Chemical Industries, and then with the Queen's coronation timed almost perfectly, we get the actual Sacred Mound, which, is equivalent really of Silbury Hill or Avebury, Silbury Hill or Glastonbury, Tor, gets a housing estate built on it, and then we get Incora. It more than means something. It's more than just a meaning. It is a victory, fist smash down. It is a symbolic, continued punch in the face, repeatedly punched. It actually is a ongoing war, a long-term war on the people, a long-term war on the symbols, religion and landscape of a conquered people. Even, 1,000 years later, 1066, it is continuance of civil war. It is it is a civil war, and I think that they've been soft on Stonehenge up till now, and since more recent developments, Now they really need to slam the fist down. And we've got that tree's been cut down on Hadrian's Wall. Someone provoked into that. Weird events just happening, like, those shootings in America, or Boris Johnson's dad's next door neighbour, going AWOL with a shotgun. There are forces at work. It's very hard to prove because these people have the arts mastered, and now they've got tech to throw into it. The Stonehenge tunnel is a shafting, and they've been tolerant, and now they're stamping down, and there's a big movement against it. And it's not just the heritage bit. It's not just the Charles culture, heritage, prehistoric England thing. It is part of that is the 50% sperm count drop since World War II. Part of it is the Taco Bell food franchise international, which has destroyed the gut microbiome and affected our capacity to act. Part of it is the stripping of our rights and the infiltration of our private lives, our private phones, the metadata gathering on us, the seizing of our data, taking it for their own. And part of it is YouTube denying us our videos on there. And you would have thought 38 Degrees would be on our side, but no, 38 Degrees aren't on our side. They're actually aiding and abetting the opposition, by taking petitions down, legal cases that have a right to run. Legal cases that have a right to run through English law, when other people have actually been responsible for trying to spoil and crash them. And the thing with 38 Degrees is 38 Degrees could actually be getting people local referendums, and local referendums that could be really, really stopping these strategic planning departments all around England. And if these local referendums were being had, it would probably completely and totally write off and derail these strategic planning departments. But because HM Gov, these ministers, the Tory party and the Labour Party, the last thing that they want is to derail their strategic planning strategy, because then they won't have one, and then we'll be doing what we want to be done in local areas, not what the government strategy or the contractors with all the trillions at their disposal want to be done, or Grant Shapps or the Department of Transport. That is the situation. And that is the situation not only with Stonehenge, but with the bike lanes, with the 15-minute cities, with all the surveillance cameras that are going up, with YouTube, where are the Advertising Standards Agency and Ofcom? They don't want us to have a say in it, and we've got a say in it. We're meant to have a say in it. And that is why it is absolutely crucial that the lawyers for Stonehenge get their act together with these local referendum procedures, right? Where is the legislation? Is this the act? If not, which act is it? There's no doubt that everyone in England has a legal right to petition about anything they want to His Majesty over any county if they're interested in it, if they've got a right privilege or interest, which they have. They won't vote in the referendum, but they've got a right to compel the local people to have one. And with 200,000 signatures plus, they've got a hell of a lot more than 26,000. So there is a right. There is amalgamated petition, an existing right that is now viable to have a Wiltshire referendum on Stonehenge Tunnel, overriding the entire council, which would override the council's consent to government, and it would certainly block the Department of Transport on a lot of the land, the surrounding land rights and status. If that gets overridden to override Wiltshire Council on all of the land statuses around it, then the government aren't going to be able to go ahead with it. And then there's the religious side of it, which there are reasons, there are a lot of complicated religious reasons why we haven't really got a name to put his finger on with what religion it is. But Howard Crowhurst has proved that such religions existed and they were celebrating the sun and dancing there. So that we don't have to have a name for it. That's it. That's the religion. We've got it's documented. It is the Temple of the Sun, and they were having religious ceremonies there. So it gets United Nations religious site protection, and you can't shaft it with a big, you can't shaft the landscape when it's got religious significance, because that religion celebrated male and female shape forms in the landscape. They celebrated them with the long barrows, with Bella Snap, even the name of it, with West Kennet, with the feminine landscape, giving birth, coming into the world, like at Stroud, Uli Longbarrow, Hetty Pegler's Tuft, Cairn Valley Cairn on the Isle of Man. Even though why it's called the Isle of Man, it should be woman, Cairn Valley Cairn, but they had some other sites there that have been demolished or just weathered away. Those people, it meant something when you had a masculine shape made of earth that you either went into or emerged from in religious ceremonies or lived on top of a long barrow, like here, Castle Hill, or Hembury Cross Fort, the big dragon's head that they lived on is a big phallic male form. It meant something to that culture. And to have a big feminine hole drilled into the landscape near Stonehenge is an insult to the integrity of that landscape, to those prehistoric people who were building male phallic and female phallic forms to celebrate the difference between man and woman, the masculine and the feminine, giving birth and the rebirth experience with the psychedelics. And I think HM government, I don't think that HM government ministers and staff are sat there in a room plotting, going, ha 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 ha, let's trash Stonehenge. But let's say they're in a similar position as that teenage lad who went and cut that tree down on Hadrian's Wall. Why did he go cut that tree down on Hadrian's Wall? It's very symbolic. It makes all the community scared, the ancient countryside community. Like, even if you take sides with Neil Oliver, if you take sides with John Campbell, if you take sides with Russell Brand or Chris Packham, this is what's going to happen. You better not side with them, or more of this, we'll trash more of your heritage. I think the ministers are in that teenager who cut that tree down in the news the other day. Someone put the idea into his head. Someone groomed or provoked or encouraged him, whether it was social media or his friends. And I think the internet messenger can be used, hacked, posing as people, or the radio or TV now can drop things in, just like they're dropping adverts onto your phone, even when you've taken photos of something you haven't uploaded yet. This is the power they've got, their reach. They call it reach. When you put in Google Ads, they say, what's your reach? What's your reach, right? That lad who cut that tree down, at sycamore tree on Hadrian's Wall, somebody, some force got the idea into his head and got him to go and do it, right? And with Stonehenge, with the tunnel, with the ministers, with the Department of Transport, the DVLA, the Highways England, hard hat guys, the chief executive, the director, in their minds, in their head, right? They're just, I'm a construction worker, we're building a tunnel, we're helping England, we're improving the infrastructure. It's going to be good, we're going to help them out. Maybe some of the staff at Stonehenge, maybe some of English Heritage, maybe some of National Trust think it's a good thing, it's a good idea. Professor Mike Parker Pearson doesn't think it's a good idea. I don't think it's a good idea. There is a force behind the ministers, behind the Department of Transport, a force that is prompting, a force that is suggesting, a force that is slipping in things, slipping in words, putting things on tables, pulling strings, emails appear. And that force has been pro-tunnel, for that tunnel. And there is, in my mind, it's a lot more like Star Wars with the, Darth Vader and the Emperor. They've got this, it's more of an ancient religious issue, that old religion, that old faith. They're doing it for Sith reasons, none of the rest of the, Empire, stormtroopers, they're not clued into what dark and sinister forces have been going on behind the scenes, right? And with Charles and the whole monarchy and the royalists and the conqueringers and then the religions being ditched and then Christianity taking over and then the whole, industrial military complex and the pollution and the food franchises and them building on our ancient sites, it means something. And the whole fact that it's all been purchased and bought and taken possession of, it is an identifiable opponent. It's an identifiable opponent. And Robert F. Kennedy Jr. is running for president of America. Marianne Williamson is running for president of America. They've named the beast. They've put a name on it. The industrial military complex. Their chemicals, their technologies, their lack of care for the environment, the lack of care for our health and well-being, the obsession with profits and tech for the sake of their gaining of technology, for their direction and ends and means, their policies, their policies overriding our law and rights, all reasons or any reason or no reason at all they can have now, any reason or no reason. And that is what Stonehenge means. It's not just about, we can get rid of the road from there and put some trees back and it'll be more in a prehistoric environment. Well, why weren't they doing that? If they're so interested in putting prehistoric environments around the ancient sites, why aren't they doing that at Glendury Dolmen? Why aren't they doing that at Bruna Boyne? Why aren't they doing that in Scotland? Why aren't they doing that with, other ancient sites? Although they have at Dorchester managed to hold back the tide of industrial sprawl from Maiden Castle. But in Stonehenge, there's a difference between, pulling one road back and growing some forest. They could have grown forests around it, right? All those farmers' fields that have been mowing corn and providing cornflakes for the last 20 years, right? Those cornflakes aren't that good for us, microbiome. They could have planted forests and been doing mushroom foraging like the Forest of Dean all around Stonehenge for 20 mile, even with a road going through it. And that would have been 10 times better, right? But they had no interest in doing that. Where's the forest? You know, if they'd have wanted a forest there, you know, like the forest of demon mushroom foraging and, you know, God knows what, they could have done that, but they haven't. They've been busy mowing corn. You know, National Trust could have bought up all those fields. It's a World Heritage status. It's not the removal of the road which is the problem, or restoration of any vibe or nice setting. It's all about the tunnel and that big shafting, that big hole in the ground. It is as symbolic and important as that Queen's Coronation building on this 40-metre high mound, which is the same size as Silbury Hill height, but bigger. It's the same height and aligns with Silbury Hill perfectly with Newgrange to make a right angle. And it's the same as the fact they slammed that Incora industrial estate was all planned out. They were obsessed with getting that. They wanted it. There was nothing that was going to stop it. The people objected multiple times, right? There was an unstoppable force. That aeroplane engine factory and its name, and it means something to those who know, but it's almost like on Star Wars with the Jedi and the Sith. No one knew what was happening, you know, with, you know, that whole thing. It was all secretive and sly. And I'm sorry, but that is how it is. And that exists. There's an aspect of what the royals are doing on a religio-spiritual level. No matter how many Charles charities there are with Save the Pigeons or, you know, whatever he's got, his homeopathy or his fucking duchy or shaking hands with Aboriginals and shaking hands with Zulu warriors or going on holiday with fucking David Attenborough. No matter what Charles is doing, where's his pop-up book here and there, it's the empire. It's the dominant military. It stands for Navy ships, it stands for aircraft carriers, it stands for new laser developments coming out of Elon Musk's backside, it stands for Putin proxy wars, it stands for Catterick Garrison, it stands for military, machine guns, Gatling cannons, the new lasers developing to shoot asteroids. It stands for everything that is war and everything that compels you to obedience and obey. Any reason or no reason, any reason or no reason in their policy, it is the flagship of the boat. It is the pinnacle of the empire, of everything that's happened in history is being channeled into that hole in Stonehenge to shaft it, because Charles is going to insert his masculine orifices into the ground next to Stonehenge and pump his little bomb into it because he wants to screw it, because it's male, it's masculine, and they are the conquering, dominating force. And they like to make a point out of it in their actions, in their motivations. And it's one thing that Rishi Sunak, he's not clued into it. Because Sunak is, I don't think he's stupid, but he is Winchester College. He's brought up in the elitist for-profit business sector, and he to me, he's more of all his intelligence. I do not insult his intelligence. He's an intelligent guy, but he's more like the in Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom, when they have, got the underground cult and, that young Maharaja is taken over. He's like the Maharaja in Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom. He's been brought up and indoctrinated into profit, 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 and business machine, and that is what he is about. And I don't think that he is. He's on that side. That's what side he's on. And whether he gets the religious situation with our country, that's what it is, and that is what is happening, and that is why no matter. George Galloway does not like the Liberal Party. He hates the Liberals, but he's not Labour anymore. But I don't think George Galloway really gets it. The thing with the Labour Party is that they are responsible for a lot of the things that have happened because they made it all, right? That's the thing with Labour. The difference between, before the Civil War and after, particularly when Labour, that period when the Labour Party was invented, there was a lot of military advancements going on, it is, you're not going to get them talking openly about it, but they've got these. What are these departments for? They've got these heraldry sectors. We've got evidence from that Merriman research, about trying to wipe out names, trying to wipe out heritage, trying to change spelling of heritage all over Ireland. Really, they're kind of doing that now. Welcoming foreigners with open arms, into the corporate entity. And then a couple of generations later, they are losing their religion. They're culture. I love Indian culture. I've got some Hindu statues here. I've got some Ganesh models and statues. I've got Shiva models and statues. I like those religions. But the corporate entity machine, the whole McDonald's corporate entity machine, it's absorbing Asians and absorbing, Sikhs, Muslims, Hindus into it, flipping fries and flipping burgers. And it accepts all religions. You can wear your burqa, you can wear your, religious clothing when you work at McDonald's. But then, the next the next sons and daughters later, that it's gone, and they're fully, that it's done through the corporate machine. It's actually not about just welcoming people from all around the world over here. As it's welcoming them, it's actually assimilating their religions and family values and beliefs. And for that reason is why, like Russell Brand is supporting that Vahana Shiva. Bill Gates is trying to take over all the farmland in India, and she's opposing all that. So I am for foreign people. I am for foreign religions and foreign culture and heritage, because it's actually been assimilated by this new world industrial military complex order for the sake of technology. And what they do with that technology is obedience. It is compliance. It's new policies that aren't even anyone's law. It's any reason or no reason when it comes to these people, and a lot of it's forced. You will accept the terms and conditions. You will comply with the terms and conditions. You will consent to the terms and conditions. And that's how they're doing it. That is how this JCB, Ken Holmes, Balfour Beat Me, Kier, that is how they're conquering the country. The war, the front line of the war is the JCB. It's not the tank. It's the beep, 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 beep. right in the eardrum. It's the McDonald's whistle coming from the TV, penetrating through the walls of the house, which you cannot block. That is the front line. It's Elon Musk's Neuralink signal coming into your brain. It is it is Neil Mohan's adverts popping up on your screen, whether you like it or not. Consent, submit, accept, and then taking of your rights away when, it's a legal requirement for them to actually comply, but they're not, and no one's helping us, The ministers are meant to be helping us. But even Andrew Bridge and the MPs having problems now, being shunned by other MPs. This is why I'm behind Robert F. Kennedy Jr. And, he gets it, but he's like, we can't make any enemies, you don't want to upset these people, don't want to mock them or make a point. How do you make a case? If you can't make a case, making a point is making a case. And the whole point of making a point is getting people to understand the point, whether or not people like it or not, So that is probably too much for most people to take in, or too much for most people to accept. Some people are in denial of it. Some people don't even know what side they're on, or if there is any side, I mean, what side are the drivers on if they're against, 15-minute cities and being charged for travelling to Cornwall on the motorway, but they're against surveillance and they're against as rights being taken away in tech? They can't be on the side of Extinction Rebellion, because Extinction Rebellion want everyone to be pedalling around on bikes. But Extinction Rebellion are against global takeover and toxic, chemicals and so forth. We all seem to be completely fragmented into these minority groups, which separate haven't really got a chance against this big corporate machine. Because the thing with the corporate machine is it's got the audience clapping. It's got the audience watching the household celebrities. It's got the audience clap. If you can get an audience, if you can stop people from talking to each other and get them all facing the front and all clapping to the same joke, then you've won them. If you can get them all, sending fan letters in and worshipping, Zoe Ball or Claudia Winkleman or whoever, you've won. Because then everyone is, for all the bad that's happening and all the, destruction happening to communities or crimes happening everywhere, then everyone would rather, turn on, tune in, cop out, switch the TV on and just, sing along to La La Land and just clap at, some guy making a joke about it. If they'd rather, drive for 3 hours, to a London studio to sit in an audience to clap at some guy joking about it, rather than actually signing a petition or doing a local referendum to do something about it, because those people don't really want to do anything about it. They either want to laugh about it, ignore it, or are more interested in, being entertained. They like the burgers. They like the McNuggets. They like the ice cream. They like, about as much as the countryside is driving up in a couple of cars at night, playing some loud music and chucking cans out of the beer of the windows of the cars. That's like the opposite of the Lost Boys. Like Grandpa, that's as close to town as I like to get. And that's as close to the countryside as we like to get. Driving up there in a couple of chav cars and chucking cans of beer out of the window, listening to some music, that's as close to the countryside as I like to get. Cutting down a sycamore tree on Adrian's wall, and the commercial radio are behind those people. The commercial radio are championing the prize money, the Bora Bora holidays, because those people, what else have they got? This is the modern world. It's like, surfing the web, swiping the apps, TikTok, Facebook chat, next thing's the metaverse. Mark Zuckerberg probably really thinks that he's helping saving the world, by letting people block and ban each other and by enticing people into the metaverse. So then they won't be filling the world with junk. They can fill the metaverse with junk instead. But yet, just like that teenager who chopped the tree down on Hadrian's Wall, being provoked into doing it by whatever ex-cult, Zuckerberg is blinded because there is a bigger force behind him that is seeking to gain control of the human will and program it and condition it. And the metaverse is the tool to do that. And I don't think it's worth it for all the other things we could be doing. There are more things you can do with real life rather than focus it all on that. And it's going to be I wouldn't touch the metaverse until I had sorted out this corrupt entity first, until I'd reversed everyone's sperm count back up to what it was supposed to be. And by the time I'd restored people's microbiomes and, got rid of the junk and crap, by the time you've done that, then people are going to be actually caring about each other and speaking to each other and engaging in real things rather than going into the metaverse. So it's almost like the police is self-defeating. It's like by the time you've cleared up all the crime, then there is no point in the police, right? That's almost like Mark Zuckerberg's argument with the metaverse, because he's like, I'll sort all this out. Come into the metaverse like the Pied Piper into the cave. We don't have to eat all this crap and spin all this junk and fill all these fucking landfill sites in and buy all this shit. Just come into the metaverse. We'll do it all digital, But that's almost like the police. But then if we cleared up all the mess and cleared up all the crap and got people talking to each other, and not through devices and getting on with each other, then you wouldn't need the metaverse, right? And so it's almost like the self-defeating point of the police. The best police force would have got rid of the police, That's, unfortunately, the irony of Zuckerberg's plans. But now I've realised that I really have gone off the topic of Stonehenge. But I definitely covered everything that I wanted to cover about Stonehenge. It is important to the people who it is important to. There are issues with Stonehenge that if don't get recognised, don't get voiced in court, don't get acknowledged for even existing, it can't be a proper case. You can't put a proper case for Stonehenge unless you fully acknowledge its full religious significance, that there is a religious significance, that the religious significance is at odds with the presiding current religion of the country and its leader, the head of the church, because that church has condemned paganism. From the fact that the same head of the church of the religion in this country that's condemned paganism, which is what Stonehenge stands for, whether you like it or not, whether you think that's petty or not, is fact. And that same person is leading and championing a legacy of a force that conquered this country and a force that is continuing to advance its conquership, not through democracy, but by takeover of democracy, which we had to take back at multiple times through history, including the Civil War and the Glorious Revolution, and the Civil War in America probably could, slavery, the abolishment of slavery, you could include in that as well, So, all these things are critically important. I can justify a £50,000 court case based on the evidence. I can justify an £80,000 court case based on all that evidence. And based on the evidence is what my court case is based on. Because I was investigating criminal activity from His Majesty's Police Force, from His Majesty's local councils. They were putting up illegal road signage, misleading us and getting fines out of us. I was investigating that and gathering evidence when I got prosecuted illegally, when I'm using English law and I'm using rights to petition for a public inquiry into it. And that evidence goes along with the fact that those forces are being taken advantage out of us and misleading us about our daily life and business. And it happens to be the same forces behind it that are behind the food, the designed and planned, strategically developed food network frameworks, and the destruction of our ancient sites and insertion of the imperial chemical industries. It is a force. It is being steered and guided. And when we are opposing it now, things are happening. There are hacks, computer hacks. There are things going wrong, things going missing in the post. Artwork that we're doing politically in opposition. Russell Brand being taken down. They're using their big platform influence to censor people. Even presidents like Robert F. Kennedy, they're trying to prevent him from getting a voice unfairly. Unfair elections, unfair platforms. It is one thing that is happening now. It is a maneuver. It is a action. It's a movement and an expression. It's, if you think of a wave, right? This is what Alan Watts said, if you think of a wave that's moving and there are different crests of the wave and different parts of water are forming different crests of the wave, but it's one wave, right? That is the Stonehenge Tunnel is one of the crests of the wave that is attempting to overwhelm our individual wills, our rights and freedoms of the people. And part of that is the tech, another crest of the wave. And, up here at our ancient sites in Ireland with that Glenjury Dolmen and then building those flats there, and they're taking away of your right to object and even charging you to pay an observation fee. That's another crest of the wave. The JCBs, even these fines on the road with the illegal road signage is another crest of the wave. Taking Robert F. Kennedy's election voice from him on the mainstream media and Biden, that's another crest of the wave. That wave, it's not a random force. In this analogy, that wave is BlackRock Vanguard, Charles of England, Balfour Beat Me, Care, JCB, McDonald's. That it is, there is a united control behind it. Google is with that. I know Google's facilitating a lot of other channels and videos, but it's actually trying to all of the people who are like, I'm not too keen on this, where we want to do something else, right? It's being quashed so that this other maneuver can overwhelm, and part of that is, the rights being taken away. So, we need to get the rights on YouTube. We need to get 38 Degrees sorted out with the rights. We need to do something about these local referendums, which the local referendums would absolutely annihilate these strategic planning departments. And without the local strategic planning departments all over England, they won't be able to do this manoeuvre. They won't be able to do this military industrial action because they won't get all the planning permissions. They wouldn't actually be able to, take out the trees and woodlands, And when it comes to tech, if people want to vote for tech, fair enough, but you don't have a vote. It's accept, consent, submit, consent, accept to our rules, our policies, and, encouraging people to block and ban each other, which is quite antisocial. It is really, really, really antisocial to encourage people to block and ban each other, because then if you go into a group and no one respects your rights, then how can you expect the government to respect your rights? They're not going to. And that's why we've got issues with the Advertising Standards Agency. That's why we've got issues with Ofcom, and the Petitions Committee in Parliament. If then they're not respecting us or our rights. And we've all been encouraged to disrespect each other's rights and not understand each other, and not trust each other. And that is part of how this machine has really, really accelerated more recently with all this distrust and intolerance. It's really, really opposite to what some of the religions really sought out to, trust, altruistic kindness and sharing. Love and sharing, love itself and sharing and caring is at the antidote for profit. It's antidote for business. No matter how many charity events Rishi Sunak goes to, no matter how many free breakfasts he gives out for PR stunts, if, anyone who starts spreading love and sharing to any large scale, it's bad for profit. It's really, really bad for business. People actually trusting and loving each other is so bad for a business model that it has to be the it's anti-industry. It has to be anti-industry, because at the end of the day, if you love a person more than an object, then you rather choose a person over an object, and then there's no point making as many objects, no matter what they do, no matter what, what telescopes can look into the galaxy, no matter what spaceships or vehicles can take you somewhere, because, the more and more you get along with people in a place and enjoy their company, the less and less you need to go somewhere else, So human love, kindness, sharing is so bad for the industrial military complex. And that's what RF Kennedy Jr. is pushing. But you've got to be able to make a point somehow and express it, either visually or artistically, or even if it's comedy, but not to a point where everyone is obsessing over it in the masses till it becomes some sort of cult and it's distracting you from solving the problem. And that's what they're doing with audiences, or two arenas, TV studios, clapping, people not talking to each other, but facing, once you're evading helping solving the problem by being entertained and distracted, then you've lost, and that's why the television has been such a potent tool for this force. It's true. Technology could be used for good. Television could be used for a lot better things, but it hasn't. And at the moment, they're wanting to accelerate this technology and advance it as quickly as they can to spring the mousetrap, because it has been used and abused, and it should have been put on a lot more correct, healthier path years ago, decades ago, 10, 20 years ago, but it wasn't. And now this is why it's critical to this opposition side to clamp down quickly, because they've brought the tech in, they've gone to your phone, they've got your data, they've got their policies in place, any reason or no reason, consent, submit, accept, and the trap will be sprung. And there's just a chance, while we have got control and access to the tech, while Russell Brand has got control of his channel, while Campbell, while Neil Oliver has, that there is a chance to counterbalance them with a judo move. But Mark Zuckerberg doesn't want to be judo moved. Mark Zuckerberg doesn't want us to swing him. Judo expert Mark Zuckerberg doesn't want to be on top of you and then you, just pull to the left and grab hold of his fucking judo belt and then pull him down under. He doesn't want you to grab hold of his billions and pull them out from under him. Zuckerberg doesn't want Robert F. Kennedy to come and judo move him, to counter swing him, to counter wrestle him down, and take his trillions away from him and give them back to the people and have the people voting on what the Facebook policy should be. Because Zuckerberg, Zick Heil, believes in power. He believes in government power, corporate power, any reason or no reason, unfortunately. And that is, it's all metadata or no metadata, all or nothing. That's where we are with it. And local I'm going to finish up now, but local referendums exist. You can have it, but who's having them? Who's having local referendums? I don't know anyone who's having a local referendums. The only local referendum that I know of is Stop Cop City in America. I don't know of any local referendums in England except for the mayor. But you can have them over petitions and subjects. And they're just not giving them because they really are trying to go, they don't exist. They're trying to kind of like, it's almost like didn't I used to have a nice jacket or a nice shirt, but I haven't seen it for a long time. Where's it gone? You see a photograph of you, with a nice jacket or shirt on, but you haven't seen it for 5 years. Where did it go? I don't remember throwing it away. It just vanished. It's like the thing that we've got in old photographs in the law. It's that cool thing we used to have, but we forgot we had it. And you don't even realise how much you liked it. Or, the local referendum is something. It's something. And you can have it over anything. And we aren't using it. And people need to realise, wow, this is great. Wow, this is cool. Now, what's happening in Atlanta, in Stop Cop City, is the local government are trying to put all these ridiculous rules and procedures on them, like getting them jumping through hoops, making it very, very hard for them. And they're even trying to pull legal cases and stunts, and the police are pulling charges on them, all in complete and total contempt of the rights and law. Everything that First Amendment right is what it is passed over from England. And we have definitely got the freedom of press, free use of press for democratic engagement. So, there are lots of things going on in Atlanta now where they're being swindled and conned and they're even being prosecuted. But I've been trying to tell them in Stop Cop City, I've been trying to explain to them with Stop Cop City about the fact that they can't be prosecuted. But, they're like, it's all English law, it's not relevant. Well, actually, it is relevant. And, it's not saying it's any different over here, because you've got Max Hill, Chief Crown Prosecutor, ignoring 2 acts of law. When I look at Stop Cop City, I get upset. That they're struggling, that they're trying to get somewhere with it, and then the council's opposing them. The lawyers are trying to help them, but I don't think the lawyers are getting it right. But what's happening over here? Got Extinction Rebellion, Jonathan M. Fuller, Good Law Project. There's a lot happening, but they don't quite seem to be getting it. Who's got our YouTube videos back up? No one yet. Robert F. Kennedy's had a go at it. I'm meant to be checking out Black Belt Barrister's channel because he's been covering Russell Brand, and to be honest, I've been like, what's he been saying? Because I hope that Black Belt Barrister hasn't been like kind of like undermining the rights. I'm not sure which side he's on with it. I need to speak to him, Maybe I should tag him in this video, but this video is meant to be for Stonehenge movement. But anyway, I think I've exhausted all I can say now. What I can say is everything that I've said, I've read in the law. Everything I said is logical theory, and I believe the principle in law is accurate and correct. And this scope covers a lot, but that's what's actually going on at the moment, and that's why people are taking part in these actions. And to see it, to understand it, it kind of is like Star Wars. It's almost, it's ironic that is a movie and it's fiction, but it is like Star Wars. It is actually playing out, although not in space, and not, it's more subtle. It's not as full on as Star Wars, but that the paradigm that is in Star Wars, that is kind of what's happening now. It's that thing. What is what was happening in Star Wars? It is happening, and they're playing for a really authoritarian objective. And there are some religio-historic aspects to it, only in so much as it concerns Charles and the empire, because religion, the religion of the nation and the spirit of the nation and the soul, and controlling that is how you have control of people. They've got the device and the gadgets and the tech now, but ultimately the human spirit, the human motivation, the human soul, and the enthusiasm, you see, like that move with the cutting down of the tree on Hadrian's Wall, that terrorism, Oh, if you all help, Neil Oliver and Chris Packham, with the environment, this is going to happen, If you take sides with that side, we're going to cut down more of your trees. We're going to destroy more of your ancient sites. We're going to drill more holes in your Stonehenge tunnel. We're going to pull more of your ancient stones down. We're going to pull more of your old buildings, This is what happens when you take sides, That is a spiritual move. It's a propaganda. It's a threat. It's terrorism. But ultimately, it's spiritual, and it's like a lot of those ISIS guys is religious, isn't it? ISIS terrorism, suicide, self, sacrifice. With the royals, with the imperial power. It's not all down to aircraft carriers, machines, 77th Brigade, Google Tech spying on your photos. They need, it's got to mean, there's got to be a meaning to it. It's got to mean something, It's got to be Incora. It's got to be called Incora if they want to get into the core. And they got to have Neuralink, Elon Musk. If they want to break the will of the individual, ultimately, having control over what you eat and having control over what you enjoy, what you like, what you don't like, what you wear, having control over the beast, the creature, the lab rat, the mouse. Ultimately, the ultimate goal of the science lab is to have ultimate control over the mouse, to control the mouse. We don't speak in squeaks. We don't speak in eek, 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 eek. We don't speak to the mouse. We don't talk to it. We don't, like a dog, you can talk to. You can teach the dog, sit, stand, give me a paw, roll over, right? I'm not a dog. I'm a human. But as far as this is what you're eating, go through the McDonald's drive-through. This is what you're doing. Don't do this. Do that. Wear the COVID mask. You know, you will go to work at this time, you will come home, accept these terms, accept those terms. You're giving your rights away. You can vote for this party or that party. That's it. You know, to get right into the inner core, so then they can just get a car, a vehicle to go beep, 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 and then you put your seatbelt on, you know? And then if they're doing something you really, really don't like, you know, demolishing the fucking village, keep away, beep, 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 the JCB. No, I really want to act, but, you know, I know I can't act because, you know, there's nothing I can do about it, you know? That's the thing that you really don't like that you have to put up with, you know? Come for the cookies and come for the treats and come for the doggy rewards, but, you know, stay away from the beeping mouse. You know, it's the mouse sound, you know, it's the beep, 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 beep. It's the emitter you've got plugged in to keep the rodents away from the house. It's the beep, 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 keeps objectors away from councils, keeps them away from objecting. You know what happened last time when you tried to object? Nothing, you know, it keeps them away. Beep, beep, beep. Keeps people, protesters away from objecting to building sites, you know, objecting to council chambers. Beep, beep, beep. This is it. And this is why I am opposed to Elon Musk, because he's working on facilitating that. He's building the framework and the devices that are going to implement that into it, hardwire it into us, you know. Now, if Elon Musk would have shown enough enthusiasm of building the sperm count back up to 100%, to restoring the gut microbiome before he builds Neuralink, you know, then we'd be on the brink. But he's not. He's like, oh, it's Elon Musk. What you doing? I'm slurping a milkshake. It's the best chocolate cookie I've ever eaten in my life. Smoke me a kipper. I'll be back for breakfast. By the way, now you can't message anyone on X or Twitter. Now you can't fucking even join X or Twitter. Now it's not even called Twitter anymore. You know, now I'm off for a ride on a rodeo ranchero. But he's not. He's fake. He's not trying to save the human race, you know. If Musk was trying to save the human race, then, you know, he'd have written off, you know, Mr. Beast's new chocolate bar company, you know. He'd have written off, you know, all these stupid Prime drinks that are all just doing it for profit and so forth. That's the problem with Musk and Zuckerberg, you know. Oh, no, we've been helping loads of charities out. Well, you know, you might have been helping loads of charities out, but, what about people, you know, if you'd have helped us out, then we didn't need any charities because we could have helped everyone else out, you know? This is it. But now the conversation has gone way, way beyond the scope of what I've started off to talk about. But, you know, Stonehenge, these places, for everyone who loves nature and everyone who likes the environment and the planet and peace and love, it is a symbol of that. And like I said, peace and love is the antidote to the industrial military complex. It's the antidote to Rishi Sunak's economy. It's the antidote to Rishi Sunak's investments. Because if you invest in people, if you invest in, you know, Rishi Sunak handshakes for a deal with an investment that will give him money back, a profitable equity, and so forth. If you actually invest in a person, if you spent time with and talk to a person, then they want to spend time and talk to you. If you do a favour for a person without money, then they'll do a favour for you for not for money. Rishi Sunak does that. That's how his business world works, but with his business partners, with his investors, for a profit. He doesn't do it with the voters. He doesn't say, yes, anyone who wants a petition in a petitions committee can submit one. I know what you're saying. I understand what you're talking about. Who couldn't? It's the English language, you know. And there are all evidence and links you're trying. Oh, well, I'll get those clicked on there. I'll do a favour for you and you do one for me. But no, because what the things that we're wanting to bring to the table are not profitable for Rishi Sunak and don't enhance his power matrix. That's the problem.